and controlled the NFC Central Division. Now they've fallen on hard times. Jan Stenerud, the veteran, the most prolific field goal kicker in the history of the National Football League, all set to kick off for Minnesota. Clee Montgomery, number 28, and Dokie Williams, number 85, back to receive for the defending world champions. About 50,000, 55,000 fans expected to be here this afternoon on what has been called a great day for professional football.
And, of course, the Raiders just about good in every department there. You see that on kick returns. They're second in the NFL, so they do get good field position for their offense.
And that's exactly where the Raiders would like to start off this afternoon. Stenerud approaches the ball, and here we go. Dokie Williams at the 2. Dokie Williams gets up to about the 28-yard line before he's tackled by Joey Browner, the former great here at UCLA. So that's where the Raiders will take over first and 10. We'll take a look at the Raiders on offense. Offensive backs and receivers: Mark Wilson, Marcus Allen, Kenny Keene, Cliff Branch, and Malcolm Barnwell, the wide receivers. The offensive line, it's a good one. Christensen, Davis, Hanna, Dalby, Mosbar, and Henry Lawrence. Mark Wilson at quarterback, filling in for the injured Jim Plunkett. First and 10. Handoff goes to Marcus Allen. Allen caught in the backfield by Neil Elshire. Defensive unit for the Minnesota Vikings: Elshire, who just made the tackle, Charlie Johnson, and Mark Mullaney. Mullaney coming back in the starting lineup. The linebackers: Robin Sinline, Dennis Johnson, Scott Studwell, and Fred McNeil. In the secondary: John Swain, Rufus Best, the corners, Tommy Hannon, and Carl Lee, the safeties. No gain on the play. Still second and 10 for Los Angeles. And Wilson is back to pass. Throws down the middle, intended for Todd Christensen, over his head, covered there by Dennis Johnson, number 52.
And Wilson, of course, being 6'5" as a quarterback is a tremendous advantage. I mean, he adds that new dimension, as Al Davis told us the other day. He can stand in the pocket. The rush, so much more rush up the middle in the NFL now. He can stand there and still find his wide receiver. That time he went to his secondary receiver over the middle, Todd Christensen.
Yeah, and Tom Forrest was telling us yesterday that he's not going to panic with Wilson because they feel they have two capable quarterbacks, so he feels very comfortable with it. Third and 10 for the Raiders. Ball at their 28-yard line. It's Malcolm Barnwell in motion, and Wilson's back to pass again. Good protection. Complete to Barnwell. Barnwell up over the 40-yard line, up to about the 42-yard line, where he falls out of bounds, and that's enough yardage for the first down. However, there is a flag on the play.
You mentioned being comfortable with Mark Wilson. You'd be comfortable with him after last week's performance in Seattle. 12 of 19 for 309 yards, a couple of touchdowns.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, number 69, defense, enforced from the end of the play, first down.
Penalty against Reuben Vaughn.
Take a look at the penalty again. Reuben Vaughn is the man. Watch him, number 69. Wilson waits in the pocket, waits, throws the ball. He's hit late, and if he had not thrown him to the ground with that little extra, it wouldn't have been a penalty.
First and 10, and here's Wilson to pass. Out in the flat to Kenny Keene. Kenny Keene gets down to the 37-yard line. Tackle made by Charlie Johnson. So what the Vikings wanted to do from a defensive standpoint was to force the Raiders into long situations, second and 10, second and long, so they could bring in 4 linemen and get a good rush, but it didn't pay off.
And last week, the same thing, Jim. They had problems with penalties, 13 penalties for over 100 yards versus Tampa Bay. Here early, a roughing the passer penalty, and the Raiders are on the move.
Pick up of 7, second and 3. Wilson back to pass. Out on the flat, complete to Barnwell. Knocked out of bounds there by John Swain. Another Raider first down.
Ooh, look at Barnwell and Swain. Barnwell didn't like the way he was tackled. The old necktie almost ripped his head off, and Barnwell is letting Swain know it. But remember, Les Steckel wants his team to be physical. He wants them to be aggressive. If you take a look at it again, you know how angry you can be as a defensive back after someone catches a pass on you. But Wilson, tall, poised, waiting for his chance to lead the Raiders, stands in, and then just shows that gun that he has for an arm. Very simple, but right there, you see? The clothesline. That's what Barnwell was complaining about.
First and 10 for the Raiders. The toss back to Marcus Allen. Marcus picking up about 3 or 4 yards before he's tackled by Neil Elshire. Dennis Johnson also in on the tackle.
Of course, the Raider offense, Jim, with so many big weapons. Mark Wilson, no drop-off at quarterback for Plunkett. They have Marcus Allen, Todd Christensen, Cliff Branch, and they're going against the Minnesota defense that has been riddled by injury, especially up front. Problems with the pass rush.
No, Marcus has been, we've been teasing him a lot recently, talking about he's a better wide receiver than he is a running back. The last time Marcus has rushed for over 100 yards was last year in the third game of the regular season against Miami. He wonders when he's going to rush for 100. Maybe it'll be this afternoon. 2nd and 7. Ball at the 20-yard line. And flags go down. So the Raiders immediately on the move, and this is one of the things.
Left side offense. Still 2nd down.
You heard the call by referee Bob McElry today. But this is one of the things I was talking about. Les
Start
Stickle.
number 79.
That's against Bruce Davis of the Raiders. He certainly does not want to have the Vikings run up and down the field early in the ballgame. And I know that Stickle is really concerned about that this early in the ballgame.
This is not a big play defense. That's been one of their big problems, Jim. They only have 4 interceptions and only 11 sacks. They're not making the big play.
2nd and 12 from the 25. The draw play to Allen.
And as soon as I say that, what does Mark Mullaney do, right? He breaks through and brings down Allen for a loss.
Mark Mullaney is a remarkable story in himself because we all know of the severe eye injury that he suffered. He's wearing somewhat of a special face mask this afternoon, and the Vikings really need him back in participation on the field.
Well, they really do, because Doug Martin has been out most of the time, too. He's had ankle problems. Charlie Johnson, number 65 in the middle, a nose tackle, is also playing with shoulders, so they really need Mark Mullaney to have a good game coming back from that eye injury.
Vikings with 5 defensive backs in. 3rd and 17. Here's Wilson. Down the middle, but flags are on the play. That was a very late flag, I guess you might say.
False start, number 72. Offense kills the play. False start kills the play.
That's why the flag came when it did against Don Mosbar.
And interesting that they were going to Todd Christensen, and the Vikings told us that Todd Christensen is a man they had to shut down, as well as Marcus Allen, and they thought that Joey Browner, the #1 draft choice last year out of USC, had the talent and the ability to cover a guy like Todd Christensen. And there you saw Browner on him.
Well, we'll see that matchup many more times before this ball game is over. Todd Christensen, a fine tight end he is. 3rd and 22. Play action pass. Wilson with great protection. Going for Christensen in the end zone at 6. Todd Christensen, the man who loves to read and write poetry, scores very poetic himself.
I don't know why in the world number 29, John Swain, take a look at it here from the end zone, and watch the left side of your screen. They're in a 3-deep zone. John Swain is responsible for the deep third of the field. There you see Christensen going deep. Swain is in great position, but for some reason, Jim, he comes up and allows Christensen to run by him. See him right there, 29. No reason in the world except a lapse of concentration.
And that lapse has been one of the reasons why the Vikings have only won 2 games. Chris Barr in for the extra point attempt. And it's good. So on a 34-yard touchdown pass from Mark Wilson to Todd Christensen, the Los Angeles Raiders jump out on top of the Minnesota Vikings with 11 minutes and 37 seconds to go in the first quarter.
Cadillac didn't have to give the 1985 Fleetwood and DeVille an aerodynamic door-into-roof design for reduced wind noise, but they did. Cadillac didn't have to include power windows that can operate up to 10 minutes after you turn off the ignition, but they did. Cadillac didn't have to provide more front seat headroom and legroom, but they did. You don't have to fall in love with the most advanced Cadillac ever, but you will.
Best of all, it's a Cadillac.
Communications satellites, the fastest, most efficient, most economical way of transmitting information, whether it be voice, data, or picture. In 1984, we're launching several of these satellites because as a communications tool, we think they're simply out of this world. G? No. GTE.
Chris Barr all set to kick off for the Raiders as they lead 7-0. Darren Nelson, who is not in the starting offensive backfield for the Vikings, is back to receive along with the rookie Alfred Anderson. Darren Nelson, 3 yards in the end zone. And Darren Nelson gets up to about the 21-22-yard line before he's tackled there by Stacy Tarrant. Kind of strange, Darren Nelson. They said he wouldn't start because of a pulled hamstring muscle, but he came out looking pretty strong then.
And you see these teams not exactly the best friends with one another as they're having words, and there's already been some of that as you look at the offensive lineup.
Minnesota offensive backs and receivers, Tommy Kramer, Alfred Anderson, the rookie. Ted Brown starting at the running back for Darren Nelson, who has a pulled hamstring. Leo Lewis starting for Sammy White, and Mike Jones there. There's a look at their offensive line, and it's a good one, and it's a big one, anchored by, and I really mean anchored by, Curtis Rouse, 6'3", 318. Tommy Kramer, 1st and 10 for Minnesota, and Kramer goes back to the pass. Complete to Alfred Anderson. Anderson knocked out of bounds by Mike Davis.
Something a little bit different. Kramer going to Alfred Anderson rather than Ted Brown. Anderson only had 5 catches for 3 yards coming into this game. As you look at that defensive line, a good one for the Los Angeles Raiders.
Howie Long, Reggie Kinlaw, and Lyle Alzado. A couple of question marks about Alzado, but he is starting. Jeff Barnes, Matt Millen, Bob Nelson, and Rod Martin, last week's AFC Defensive Player of the Week. The secondary, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, the great corners, Mike Davis and Dan McElroy at the safety position. 2nd and a short 1. That's Ted Brown. Brown picks up enough yardage behind some pretty good blocking by his offensive line that we talked about. Picks up enough yardage for the 1st down.
Exactly. This Minnesota Viking team under Les Steckel will not be intimidated. We've heard that so often. Kramer's the spark plug. Alfred Anderson, a real find at running back. Of course, Ted Brown, the old reliable. Darren Nelson, hamstring problems, but looked pretty good on the return. Wide receivers, young and learning. Les Steckel is developing a solid, balanced offense with a good running game.
Told us yesterday he wants his team to develop great work ethics. That's Anderson in motion. Kramer's back to pass. Good protection, but all of a sudden it falls down as in comes Howie Long. I thought at that time that Kramer had more than enough time to get the ball off. However, good coverage in the Raiders secondary.
Exactly. They always talk about the rush helping the secondary. Well, coverage also helps the defensive line. This time, Howie Long was actually banged inside. Kramer had enough time, but the coverage in the secondary is the reason for that sack.
Howie Long. Many consider him one of the finest defensive linemen in the game. Now the Raiders have 6 defensive backs in. This is what they call their bandit defense, and they use a number of different people in all kinds of situations. Minnesota in the shotgun formation. Throwing deep. And Mike Jones will score. Yards. Tommy Kramer to Mike Jones. And the Raiders secondary, which many thought was invincible, is in shock.
I am in shock because very seldom do you see that secondary, especially a guy like Lester Hayes, have his problems. And then Van McElroy miss a tackle, and Jones takes it in for 70 yards. You just don't do that against the Raider defense.
Yesterday when we were talking to Kramer, he told us, he said, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to try and go deep on this club, and we want to try and go deep on the Raiders' left defensive side, which is where Lester Hayes patrols.
And he said, we're going to push on that bump and run. We're going to lean on them, be more aggressive, and then bounce off it, and that's exactly what happened there.
Jan Stenerud, who came over from the Green Bay Packers, is in to attempt the extra point conversion. And it's good.
Let's take another look at that. We talked about number 89, Mike Jones. He's to the right of your screen. You can't see him, but you'll see him in a moment. Kramer back to pass, gets reasonable protection. There he's breaking out from the slot. You see the slip right there? Okay, and he finally falls down. That's James Davis. And then Jones, watch, this is a good tackling secondary, but Van McElroy, number 26, misses a tackle. Hayes can't catch him. Touchdown, Vikings. This game is tied.
So don't you folks go away. For those of you that thought it would be a runaway, we're tied at 7.
Ever since that summer job, way back then, you've dreamed of having your own El Dorado. Now you've realized your dream. Your 1985 El Dorado is a very special Cadillac with a special way of moving you like no other car. You were right all along. El Dorado is the car that dreams are made of.
Best of all, it's a Cadillac.
Ollie, if you don't hurry, I'll miss my plane.
Well, I'm doing the best I can in this terrible rain.
Would a new set of Vanco wiper blades help?
Certainly. Put them on.
Change to Anco. They clean better than any other blade. Test proven.
There, now I can see an airplane. Airplane!
Don't worry, Ollie. It wasn't mine. That's mine.
Anco. The best blades you can buy. Test proven.
Jan Stenerud all set to kick off for Minnesota. Dokie Williams and Clee Montgomery back on the goal line for the Raiders. We're tied at 7. Ball coming to Montgomery at the 2. Oh, as he belted, but there is a flag on the play. He's hit there by Chris Martin.
And Browner is squaring off with Matt Millen, number 55. Watch yourself, Joey.
Called holding against the Raiders. Vikings will have the option here.
Holding, number 54 on the return. 1st and 10.
Against Darrell Bird.
Take a look at the touchdown. Mike Jones, 70 yards from Tommy Kramer. Now, Van McElroy, number 26, a great tackler. See him coming here. He doesn't get himself under control, and the thing you worry about is the cutback there. He doesn't position himself. Jones cuts back underneath him. He falls down. It's a touchdown. I'm surprised, McElroy.
One of the big plays that Minnesota said they wanted to get. They certainly do. 1st and 10 for the Raiders at their 14. Alfred Barnwell in motion. Handoff goes to Marcus Allen. Marcus trying to dip to the outside, tries to cut back and can't make it. Fred McNeil, 11-year veteran from UCLA, in on the tackle.
Did you get the feeling that the Minnesota Vikings are ready to play today?
Well, yeah, you know, I kind of got the feeling about them last night as we talked to them over at their hotel, because, as Les Steckel says, all he wants them to do is to play hard. He wants them in practice to develop those great work ethics, and it will carry over into the games. He said last night, you know, there have been times when we were losing at the end of the ball game, but our players have been going 100 miles an hour. Sooner or later, those things will certainly catch up with you and help. 2nd and 13. A handoff to Allen. Marcus Allen up the middle, and a flag is down. Marcus tackled there by Mark Mullaney and Robinson Line. But there is a flag. Holding against the Raiders.
Raiders having their problem with penalties. They're already penalized 4 times for 30 yards. That was, of course, Minnesota's problem last week. Tom Flores, his team is noted for getting penalties, but here they're having it early. 4.
Holding, number 73, offense. Half the distance, 2nd down.
That call on Charlie Hanna. Other scores today, a final, the Giants beating Atlanta 19-7. It's the Jets over Cleveland 24-20. That's the final. And Miami, Dan Marino again over Houston 28-10. Here it's tied at 7. 2nd and 18. And Wilson from his own end zone. Complete to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen tackled by Fred McNeil.
And you see the advantage of being a 6'5" quarterback. Number 77 tried to get up in Wilson's face. He just threw it over the top. Puts his arm up as you look at another final. Detroit, a winner in overtime, 13-7 over Tampa Bay. Detroit trying to get back in the race. Philadelphia over Indianapolis, 16-7.
And another score, the Rams defeating the New Orleans Saints 28-10.
I guess Earl Campbell didn't do much.
6 defensive backs in now for the Vikings. Instead, the Raiders hand off to Allen, and he's tackled by Mullaney. So Mark Mullaney who is wearing a special face mask this afternoon, something we were told like a hockey face mask. It has a little plastic in front of it to protect him from that eye injury, has come up with a couple of big tackles already.
Of course, he was the #1 draft choice back in 1975. In his 10th year out of Colorado State, a stabilizing leader on that defensive line, number 77. And he's doing a job early.
Certainly is. It's got to be very inspirational for Minnesota. Ray Guy into punt for the Raiders. Darren Nelson back deep for Minnesota. Ray Guy playing his 166th consecutive game. Good punt. Nelson at the 32. Darren Nelson gets up to about the Raider 48-yard line before he's tackled there by Tony Caldwell. So the Vikings will take over in Los Angeles Raider territory when we come back.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
The Paul Newman Carl Haas Budweiser racing team is pouring it on in the Championship Racing Series, and they're playing to win. This Bud's for you.
Cadillac didn't have to give the 1985 Fleetwood and DeVille the world's only front-drive transverse-mounted V8, but they did. Cadillac didn't have to back these cars for 4 years or 50,000 miles, but they did. Cadillac didn't have to add a new standard high-mounted stop lamp in the rear window, but they did. You don't have to fall in love with the most advanced Cadillac ever, but you will.
Press the ball into Cadillac.
With 7 minutes and 33 seconds left to go in the first period, I'm Jim Hill along with John Dockery. The Los Angeles Raiders and the Minnesota Vikings are tied at 7. The Vikings have the ball, 1st and 10 at the Raider 47-yard line. Tommy Kramer at quarterback. The handoff to Alfred Anderson. Anderson grabbed there by Rod Martin. Rod Martin, last year's AFC Defensive Player of the Year. What an outstanding linebacker he is.
Rod Martin believes that he's better than Lawrence Taylor. Now, I know he's tied for second on the Raiders with 45 tackles, but being better than Lawrence Taylor, maybe you Green, but not Lawrence Taylor.
Well, you know, he told us yesterday, said, let the stats speak for themselves. 6 defensive backs here now for the Raiders. 2nd and 10. It's Anderson in motion. Here's Kramer. Complete to Ted Brown out of the backfield. Ted Brown tackled by Jeff Barnes.
Tackled by Jeff Barnes, being covered by Rod Martin. Ted Brown, of course, with those instincts coming out of the backfield, one of the best all-purpose backs in the league. He comes out, he sees number 53, Rod Martin, on the outside. So what he does is fake outside, come back inside, and Kramer drills the ball. He's got that quick release. See him right there, he comes back inside. Martin can't get him, he gets some extra yards.
So there's a measurement on the field with 6 minutes and 31 seconds left to go here in the first period. Tommy Kramer, a young man who's gone through a lot of ups and downs in his career. As we look at the measurement, it'll be 3rd and less than a yard. But Kramer told us yesterday, he says, hey, I like this atmosphere. I like the disciplinary methods of Les Stickle. He says all professional athletes need some kind of discipline, and he feels that discipline will help to get the Vikings back on top where they used to be.
And he also said as a result of Stickle's conditioning program and his demanding attitude, he's in the best shape of his life, and that's coming off a knee injury, terrible knee injury last year.
3rd and less than a yard for the Vikings. Ball at the Raider 37-yard line. Hand off to Ted Brown, and he picks up enough yardage for the first down. So tackle's made by Matt Millen, but there is a flag on the play.
When you're in a pinch, you give it to the man that has led this team 4 out of the last 5 years in rushing and receiving. That's Ted Brown. Well, let's wait for the penalty. Ooh.
Penalty against the Raiders.
Personal foul. The Raiders are never guilty of that kind of behavior. I just don't understand it.
You're being sarcastic again. But, you know, one of the things about this situation, though.
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 26, defense, first down.
Van McElroy, of course, missed the tackle before on the touchdown on Mike Jones. Who knows? Maybe he's a little upset. See him on the outside here. He's working on number 83. Steve Jordan was trying to block him. Now he's going to say, "Get out of here, Steve Jordan." Watch him. He's going to turn around, say, "Hey, that's enough." That's a penalty. That wasn't much. That's part of the game.
Penalty. Oh, no, not that. If that was a call.
But sometimes you're out of them. The Raiders have that reputation of being the tough guys, the bad guys on the block, and that will contribute to some penalties.
And what the Raiders have done is kept Minnesota in this ball game. Dwight Collins, number 84, checks in for Minnesota. And the tossback, flag on the play to Alfred Anderson. Anderson with Jack Squirey coming over to make the tackle along with Van McElroy. Lester Hayes also up from the secondary. But as I mentioned, there are flags, as you saw right there.
Little tricky maneuver before the ball was snapped there. One of the Vikings moved up to the line of scrimmage, Jim, and we'll wait for the call. Might be illegal procedure. They're talking to the Raiders.
Well, I think what the Vikings are trying to do.
Offside defense is refused. Personal foul defense is accepted.
Oh.
36.
Oh, gee.
Tom Flores wondering how many penalties will I get? It's the 6th penalty for the Raiders.
And we haven't even finished the first period.
I know
here. That penalty against Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, of course, another one of those tough guys in the secondary, the oversized. Watch number 36. He's on the inside. Number 84, Dwight Collins, is trying to block him. He says, "Don't do that. Get down." And he gives him a little extra elbow under the throat.
And telling him what he did and probably telling him he's going to do it again.
Don't come inside. Don't you understand? This is the Raider defense.
Talking to Dwight Collins, but the Raider defense has put the Viking offense in excellent field position. First and goal from the 7.
Mike Davis telling the rookie, stay out of the middle.
Here's Freeman to pass. Low handoff reverse to Ted Brown. And a swarm of Raider linebackers. Bob Nelson, Rod Martin, Matt Millen in on the tackle. And there is a flag on the play. Another penalty flag. You know, one of the things that, in talking to the Raiders when they talk about those penalties against them, this time it's against Minnesota.
It's only Minnesota's 2nd penalty. Of course, the Raiders already have 6, so.
For illegal procedure. You know, one of the things the Raiders tell us that it really gets them up even more so. And they really like to play even more aggressively when they get those penalties against them.
Illegal motion, number 83 offense. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 37 defense. Offsetting foul.
Lester Hayes.
You know, Leo Lewis, number 87 for the Vikings, is only 5'8". Lester, of course, wants to beat him up a little bit. He gets that second push. He says, "Get out of bounds. You're not going to be a factor. I'm going to go on." Boy, they are serious about playing defensive back today. They're angry. Lester is angry. So is Van McElroy and Davis.
We're going to have some major confrontations all afternoon.
They figure that since Mike Jones is in his 2nd year and Leo Lewis, these are young receivers trying to find their way. They said, we're going to let them know early what it's about.
But, you know, look.
How he feels he's being picked upon. Look at this. Talking to the referee.
Now, what's developing is that the officials are really going to have to take control of this ball game because we see the aggressiveness of the Raiders coming out immediately. I can see Lester Hayes coming up to the line of scrimmage and looking at Leo Lewis. Leo's only like 5'9", and he wants to intimidate him right away and get him on out of the ball game, and the officials are going to be right on it.
And you know there's smoke coming out of Lyle Alzado's helmet about now, too. He's angry.
First and goal from the 3. Here's an inside reverse. Allen Rice goes in on the inside reverse from 3 yards out. And what the Vikings have done is they are showing the Raiders a multitude of offensive formations, trying to confuse them. That time goes in for the end zone for the score easy.
Creative offense. How often do you ever see this in pro football? You see it in college sometimes, but this is an inside reverse, as you called it. Take a look at it right here. And if you get a look at number 83 leading the play, see him coming across your screen right there in front. He gets a good block on the outside. See 83 right there? And that allows Rice to take it into the end zone.
Steve Jordan, number 83. Jan Stenerud in to attempt the extra point conversion. And it's blocked.
Stenerud having an extra point blocked. What a surprise.
Howie Long. So Howie felt he was being picked on, and he got in, and you never know. Those kinds of plays can turn up to be very big plays at the end of the ball game and very inspirational plays at the time that they happen.
No doubt about it. I mean, it changes the whole complexion of what you have to do. If the Raiders come back and score a touchdown, they lead this game. Take a look at it again. See if we can see the block. Okay? Watch number 75, Howie Long. He's coming up the middle between center and guard. He gets a little penetration and then jumps. The ball was kicked a little bit low also, Jim.
So the Los Angeles Raiders, surprisingly, find themselves behind the Minnesota Vikings with 5 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in the first period.
What does it take to excel? It takes speed, reliability, economy. It takes express mail next day service from the post office. We'll deliver your urgent packages overnight. And our 2-pound pack is just $9.35, about half what most others charge. So next time, use the service that delivers over 95,000 packages on time every day. Express mail service. We deliver excellence for less.
The insulation is ready, and the time is now. It's all up to you to beat those high home heating and air conditioning costs. So get rolling. Add an extra layer of Owens Corning Pink Attic Blanket Insulation and score energy savings. If you act now, you'll get a free warm-up jacket with the emblem of your favorite NFL team. A great offer, only from Owens Corning.
Monday on the season premiere of the Emmy-winning Cagney and Lacey.
Who hurt you, honey?
A child molester is at large, and they'll defy a court order to get him.
What is the worst thing that could happen? Jail. I've been there.
John, remember talking to Tom Flores yesterday? He says, hey, you know, we got to knock these guys out right away. We don't want to give them a chance. Well,
giving them a chance.
That's
they
right.
Lead,
Minnesota kicking off again. Here's Dokie Williams. He has a hole. Dokie Williams gets up to about the 28-yard line before he's tackled by Alan Rice. Rice coming through on special teams, the man that just scored on the inside reverse 4 touchdown.
Alan Rice, of course, the rookie out of Baylor, or one of the 2 rookies out of Baylor. Let's take another look at Alan Rice's touchdown. Watch 83. Goes in the opposite direction on this misdirection play. There's Rice, and then a good block on the outside. Rice takes it in. I like it, especially a team that pursues as well as the Raiders. Go against the grain.
So let's see how the Raiders come back and how they counter being down now 13-7. First and 10 at their own 29. Play action pass. Great protection. There's Barnwell. Malcolm Barnwell tackled by Carl Lee as he gets inside Viking territory into about the 48-yard line.
Had Chris Martin, number 56, gotten a little deeper in his zone, there was play action. The Raiders the Minnesota Vikings didn't really buy it, but 56, Chris Martin right there. See, if he gets a little deeper in his zone, he'll get this crossing pattern, but he doesn't. Wilson has all the time in the world, throws it over his head, thus the completion to Malcolm Barnwell for the first down.
Pickup of 23 yards. First and 10. Wilson set to pass. Complete to Cliff Branch. And Branch gets loose. Again tackled by Carl Lee. The ever-dangerous Cliff Branch.
How in the world, after 13 years, do you remain that quick and slippery? It looks as though he has Vaseline on his uniform. He makes the catch. He knows where to go. All he needs is those 8 receptions to be at 500. Second best receiver in the Raider ever in Raider history. Here he just makes the hook, catches the ball, but watch after he catches it. Ducks under 2. Vikings miss him. First down.
At the 31-yard line of Minnesota. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen up the middle, tackled by Neil Elshine. So we wanted to find out how the Raiders would respond, and I think we knew the answer before we even made the comment with 4 minutes and 11 seconds left. The Raiders are a great football team, but defensively this afternoon they have given the Vikings too many opportunities, and that's why Minnesota leads by 6.
Wilson are having a good afternoon. He's 7 of 8 for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, obviously doing well and replacing Jim Plunkett.
Pick up a 4, 2nd and 6. Wilson back to pass. A lot of time intended for Cliff Branch. Knocked away by Rufus Bess.
Nice play by Rufus Bess. I don't care what the crowd is doing, folks. You hear the booing from the hometown Raider crowd, but Rufus Bess, the sixth-year man out of South Carolina State, makes a good play. Take a look at Branch. He's being covered. You see 21 doing it there. He waits. They're in a zone. Finally, a good reaction right there. Gets his hand in to knock it away.
And, of course, the partisan Los Angeles crowd is screaming for pass interference. But a pretty good defensive move there by Bess. 3rd and 6.
Excuse me, Jim. Go ahead.
Here's Wilson again. Cliff Branch was the nearest Raider in the vicinity. Matt Blair.
And what they tried right there was the old pick play. In basketball, we all know about it. One player goes out. Todd Christensen went out. Picked for Branch coming underneath. It didn't work. But I was just going to make the point about number 21 in white, Rufus Bess. He is replacing Willie Teal, who's out with an injury. Of course, Teal was having a great year, becoming a good cornerback. So the pressure's on the defensive secondary of the Vikings with Mark Wilson doing a job at quarterback for the Raiders.
So Chris Barr will come in and attempt a 45-yard field goal. And it's partially blocked. Goes into the end zone. So the Vikings, who for years and years and years were notorious at blocking extra points and field goals, Tim Irwin, once again, we talked about at the top of the show about them trying to regain the things that they had before. We've started to see a couple of signs here in the first period.
See if you can catch it right here. We're looking for Tim Irwin, number 76. He's up the middle. See him in the middle of your screen, up the middle. He gets one hand up. The left hand, the ball bounces off it. Both kickers now have had problems with conversions. Here, Barr on the field goal, and before that, Jan Stenerud on the extra point. So this game remains tight at the Coliseum.
Make it brand new, Napa. Make it Napa brand new.
It's like turning back the miles on your car when you use quality Napa brand parts. So whether you do it yourself or have it done for you, make it Napa brand new. Right now, during Napa Car Care Days with quality Napa Auto Parts. It's almost like turning your car back to when it was new. Look for the Napa Car Care Days banner and...
Make it brand new, Napa. Make it Napa brand new.
These Midwestern farmers believe in giving everyone a fair deal, and they expect one in return. They've always gotten along with the travelers on that score. And last year, we gave farmers like Tom and Harvey a deal that they thought was more than fair. The travelers offered them a customized farm and ranch policy that gave them better coverage for their money. Ask them if they think the travelers deals fairly. We're pretty sure they'd say, yup. At the Travelers, we believe fairness is good business.
3 minutes, 29 seconds left to go in the first period. The Minnesota Vikings on top of the Los Angeles Raiders by 6. The Vikings have the ball. 1st and 10 at their own 27-yard line. Tommy Kramer has already thrown a long touchdown pass. He's in at quarterback. Kramer's back to pass again. Feels pressure on the blitz. Complete to Ted Brown. Brown tackled by Jack Squarick. There are some great games going on in the NFL today. And for an update on the Washington-Dallas game, let's go to Brent Musburger in New York.
All right, Jim. Gary Hogerboom still trying to force the ball for the Dallas Cowboys. Here he is trying to do it to Ron Springs, only Monty Coleman was right there. Interception, touchdown, Washington 7, Dallas 7. Back to Jim.
Thank you very much, Brent. Back here at the Coliseum. 2nd and 6 for Minnesota. They lead the Raiders. Ted Brown in motion. Handoff goes to Alfred Anderson. Anderson gets to the outside. Van McElroy coming up to make the tackle. And there's a penalty on the play. Another penalty flag. This time the penalty flag is on the 30-yard line.
Jim, that'll be the 9th penalty in this game. And we're still in the first quarter.
this time against Minnesota for holding. So as I said, the officials are really going to have to get control here.
Holding, number 76, offense, second down.
Penalty call against Tim Irwin. Talking about because there could possibly be some scuffles out there because we know the Raiders really want to try and establish themselves in the ball game. There's a look at the penalty situation already. The Vikings a pair for 25 yards. The Raiders 7 for 53 yards.
Well, maybe the Vikings believe there's some poetic justice after last week when they had 13 penalties for 101 yards, 5 of them on their center, Ron Sams.
James Davis checks into the Raiders secondary. That gives them 5 defensive backs. Second and 16. Hand off to Ted Brown. Ball comes loose, but after the whistle. Bill Piquel in on the tackle. That's Mike Davis coming up with what he thought would be the fumble, but it was indeed after the whistle. You have to remember the ground cannot cause a fumble. Mike Davis, who was one of the finest defensive backs in the National Football League, also one of the most underrated. He does not get a lot of publicity and attention, obviously because of the 2 excellent cornerbacks in the secondary.
Of course, Hayes and Haynes get most of it, and Van McElroy is in the same position as Davis.
So it'll be 3rd and 13 for Minnesota. In the shotgun. Good protection. Flag is down, but the pass is complete. Complete to Sammy White. Sammy, who wasn't supposed to start this afternoon because of a hamstring pull, but there is a flag on the play.
And Lester is pleading his case. He's talking about the bump and run. He's saying to the official, look, I only gave him the 1 bump. And now you see Kramer clapping because he knows the penalties against Lester. Lester saying, come on, what are you doing to the defensive backs? We've got to be able to bounce these guys around a little bit. Don't you know who I am?
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness. Number 37, going to the head.
Going to the head. Let's take a Lester going to the head. It's getting rough in that defensive backfield. Here he is, okay? See number 87, Leo Lewis. Very small. And the fact that he went up to the top of his head, that's the penalty.
His left hand hitting Leo right in the face mask as he tried to come off the line of scrimmage. The penalty gives the Vikings enough yardage for the first down. So it'll be 1st and 10 at the Viking 47-yard line. And the Raider defense, that's their 8th penalty, I believe, for the afternoon. And they just keep putting Minnesota in good field position. Here's Tommy Kramer. That's Ted Brown in motion. And the handoff to Anderson. Rod Martin in on the tackle, along with Jack Squire.
Well, there's a lot of conversations. Number 36, see Mike Davis complaining that Ted Brown hit him in the back of the legs. Of course, Mike Davis was hurt in that 1981 game when Sammy White hit him from the back, broke his leg, hurt his knee.
It'll be 2nd and 6 as we look at some other scores. St. Louis, who beat Dallas last week, comes back to beat the Bears 38-21. It is Kansas City over San Diego 31-13. Another final. One other final. It's New England over Cincinnati 20-14. 13-7 here, Minnesota. 2nd and 6. Here comes a handoff, goes to Alfred Anderson. Alfred Anderson tackled there by Matt Millen.
And Jim, you mentioned those scores in the NFC Central, and you made the point at the top of the show that that division could be possibly won with 9-7 or even 8-8. And now you look at the division tightening up as Chicago lost, so they're now 4-3. Detroit won, they're 2-5. So if Minnesota wins today, they get a lot closer to the top of the Central Division.
They certainly do. 30 seconds left to go here in the first period, and we see both teams making multiple substitutions. The Raiders bringing in 5 defensive backs, and Minnesota coming up with a lot of different formations. So the 5 defensive backs for the Raiders. Now we see another one checking, and that makes 6 defensive backs. This is what the Raiders call their bandit defense. And Minnesota bringing up multiple formations on offense, trying to confuse the defense. There's a pass complete over the middle. Mike Jones. So it's like a chess game that's going on out there now. Both teams making a lot of moves. Les Stickle told us yesterday that he's going to try and show the Raiders more formations than they've ever seen before. And with that play, that is the end of the first period here at the Coliseum. So after 15 minutes, kind of a surprise to a lot of people here in the Coliseum as the Minnesota Vikings lead the Raiders 13-7.
All Out is the only way you go. And it earns you the rewards of success. Naturally, that includes the car you drive. Distinctive, elegant. Seville goes all out to achieve your high goals for luxury travel. Drive the 1985 Seville, the car for those who, like you, choose to go first class all the way.
Best of all, it's a Cadillac.
By the time I hit the field, I've already worked overtime. Studying films of the guy across the line, 4 hours a night. Because I believe in doing my homework. And people wonder how come I'm always in the right place at the right time.
This Bud's for everyone who keeps things rolling in the mighty Mississippi.
Breakaway barge, please respond.
Let's get him.
Golding, we're right below here and we're on our way out.
I'll come around on port side and bumper there.
Yeah, just for you. That distinctively clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
For all you do, this Bud's for you.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. Cadillac Motor Car Division and your Cadillac dealer. Best of all, it's a Cadillac. And by National Car Rental. When you rent a car for business or pleasure, you deserve national attention.
As we begin the second period of action, I'm Jim Hill along with John Dockery. Here at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, the Minnesota Vikings leading the Los Angeles Raiders 13-7. Vikings have the ball first and 10 at the Raider 38. Tommy Kramer, quarterback. Fake handoff, and the toss back goes out to Anderson. He fumbles the ball. And Van McElroy comes up with the fumble recovery. McElroy doing the heads-up thing. You never know what the officials are going to call. He runs it all the way down to the other end, but Alfred Anderson, the rookie out of Baylor, fumbled the ball after he was tackled, and Van McElroy comes up with a fumble recovery, and the Raiders will take over first and 10 at their own 27-yard line. Van McElroy, who's really trying to make amends for some of the things that the Raiders on defense have done this afternoon.
No doubt about it, but one of the problems of the Minnesota Viking offense has been fumbling. Here, take a look at it as Anderson takes the flip after the fake inside. He's got some room to maneuver, carrying the ball like a loaf of bread on the outside. It's ripped away right there, and Van McElroy comes up with it, but see, he's touched right there by number 83, Steve Jordan, so he can't get up.
Wilson back to pass on first down. Plenty of time. Malcolm Barnwell. Malcolm Barnwell picks up enough yardage for the first down at about the 40-yard line of Los Angeles. Tackle there made by Robinson Line.
And many people thought that Wade Wilson at 6'5", didn't have mobility. There he rolls out, but it was really Malcolm Barnwell, the man who dotted the I when he caught the ball right here. Good sense of where you are in the field, touches both feet down, leans out of bounds for the reception.
First and 10 for the Raiders at their 40-yard line. Wilson back to pass. Good protection. Complete to Toki Williams. Toki Williams. Tackled by a host of Raiders. Toki Williams of the Raiders, tackled by Dennis Johnson and Carl Lee of the Minnesota Vikings.
It just took too long for number 77, Mark Mullaney, to get to Wilson. He must have had 5 seconds back there. When you give a quarterback like Wilson with that strong arm, that kind of time, and receivers like Williams are going to find the opening, you have no chance, Jim.
A pickup of 26 yards. Down to the Viking 33-yard line. Hand off to Frank Hawkins. Frank Hawkins, tackled by Scott Studwell. Dennis Johnson, number 52, also in on the tackle. One of the great things about this Raider ball club is they have an abundance of fine running backs. Here's Frank Hawkins, who comes in and he fills the role, especially what he's supposed to do. He knows he comes in short yardage situations. He'll come in and relieve Kenny King, and he does an excellent job of it. Hawkins in the backfield now with Marcus Allen. Second and about 6. Wilson's back to pass. Down the middle, and it's picked off. That's John Swain. Marcus Allen coming up to make the tackle, and there's a flag on the play. Marcus Allen and Dokie Williams make the tackle on John Swain, but there is a flag on the play.
Wilson tried to look the defenders off, and he came back over the middle. One thing you don't want to do throwing over the middle, it's a cardinal rule. Don't throw late over the middle.
32 defense, throwing the run, and force from the end of the run, first down.
The penalty then against Marcus Allen.
Take a look at it again. Wilson just overthrows this ball. He's looking to the outside, wants to come back down the middle. See him looking for Barnwell right there. Barnwell goes outside. Wilson throws it inside. It's an easy interception for number 29, John Swain. And then there's some battling going on. See that shot Marcus Allen gave to Tommy Hannon? That was the penalty.
So early here in the second quarter, 13:23 left. Minnesota still on top.
When you rent one-way from most car rental companies, there are strings attached, like the drop-off charge at the end of the line, the one you pay to help get their car back. At National, there are no strings or mileage charges, because we have a whole fleet of cars available for one-way rentals, and they're just $10 a day more than our regular low daily rates. So the choice is yours. Rent one way or the other. National Car Rental, the way to go one way.
Time. It takes time to create quality. The quality taste of Budweiser. Time to select the choicest ingredients. For exclusive Beechwood aging, to brew the distinctively clean, crisp taste of Budweiser. Quality taste. That's what people want in a cold glass of beer. And this is the one they want. Somebody still cares about quality.
You know, John, here's a very interesting comparison of giveaway and takeaways, and surprising to see that the Raiders are behind as far as giveaway and takeaways are concerned this year.
You would think a team with a 5-1 record wouldn't be -3, and a team with a 2-4 record almost the same with a -2.
Tommy Kramer making the inside handoff. Alfred Anderson. Anderson picking up a couple of yards. Lyle Alzado in on the tackle.
Tommy Kramer having a good afternoon. He's 5 for 5. Perfect so far for 101 yards, 1 touchdown. And he really is the spark plug. How goes Kramer, so goes Minnesota Viking offense.
And the Vikings and Kramer doing exceptionally well so far. Kramer completing a touchdown pass of 70 yards to Mike Jones. The Vikings lead the Raiders 13-7. Second and 8. Ball at the 31-yard line. The toss back to Anderson. Rod Martin of the Raiders, the first to make contact with the Los Angeles defense. Bob Nelson also in on the tackle. The Vikings really believe, and they've done a good job of it so far this year, they really believe that they can run on this Raider defense, which has been a defense that a lot of clubs have had success against in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, they're ranked way down versus the rush 18th. And the Viking offense under Steckel, he told us he wanted to get more running, and they're averaging 154 yards a game, 4th in the NFL. So this is a team that's becoming more balanced. Remember under Bud Grant, they always played that basketball possession, ball control passing game. Not so much anymore.
So now the Vikings, 3rd and 4. 5 wide receivers. And Kramer's back to pass. Throwing deep. Pass intended for Leo Lewis. Covered there by Mike Haynes. So with the incompletion, that will force Greg Coleman to come in for his first punt of the afternoon. Coleman, who averages 41 yards per punt. One of the fine punters in the National Football League. And Greg Pruitt, who was the best at returning punts last year, is back at his 25-yard line for Los Angeles. 11 minutes and 51 seconds left to go here in the first half. Vikings on top. Coleman is about to give Los Angeles the ball with this. Red Good at the 26. Good block.
Good run.
Knocked out of bounds by Coleman. That was James Davis, number 45, who came over and gave Good a great block, really sprung it. And the Raiders get excellent field position at the 50-yard line. We talked about Greg Good being the best at it last year, and here's what he does best.
You wonder how a guy 12 years in the NFL can still have this kind of courage, because this is the most dangerous play. There he dances up the sidelines, gets some good yardage, gives some good field position, but you have to wonder how a guy who's been around that long still has the courage to run back punts. We'll be back in a moment here at the Coliseum.
If you've got what it takes and really care, there's a special kind of life you'll want to share. Serving your country's a special call. It's good for you, it's good for all. Not all who try fit the bill. It calls for brains, it calls for skill in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. High-tech and the services go hand in hand. It's a whole new world. You're in demand in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You'll move up, you'll feel proud. You'll stand out above the crowd in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. But most of all, you'll earn the respect of the people and country you're there to protect. In the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It's a great place to start.
Every new car program at General Motors has to prove itself the hard way. Again, and again, and again, and again. We think you'll agree it's worth it, just to be on the safe side. Nobody sweats the details like GM.
Wednesday, Charlton Heston, the father. John Savage, the son. Maud Adams, the woman who married one but loved the other. Nairobi Affair.
Mark Wilson, quarterback of the Los Angeles Raiders.
And the fact that, excuse me, Jim, I was going to say the fact that Minnesota is leading 13-7 really doesn't have much to do with Mark Wilson. He's having a good afternoon.
9 of 13, 155 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You're right about that. It's first and 10 for the Raiders. Just inside their own 50 yards. And up goes to Marcus Allen. Allen tackled by Mark Mullaney. And Allen gets up to about midfield. Mark Mullaney doing an excellent job of playing defense this afternoon. In the second quarter, it's Seattle over Buffalo, 17-0. Buffalo really having a tough time this year. Pittsburgh leading the 49ers 10-0 in the second quarter.
That's a shock.
That's right. The 49ers undefeated and losing right now. And it's Washington over Dallas 14-2 in the second quarter. That's always a great ball game. 2nd and 9. Marcus Allen is in motion. And Wilson's back to pass. Complete to Allen. Marcus Allen knocked out of bounds by number 45, Tommy Hanna.
Of course, Marcus Allen last week against Seattle was the difference with 4 receptions for 173 yards. He just knows where to go. Knows how to get open. Some people say he's a better receiver. See him there in motion. He just stays to the outside, stretches out that zone, takes the pass, makes it look very easy. Of course, Wilson also reading the way a quarterback has to do now.
One of the things that the Raiders have done with Marcus is they have used all of his talents. That's why he's been receiving a lot. It's 3rd and 2. And Wilson set to pass again. Complete to Marcus Allen. Great catch.
Great move. Oh, my goodness.
Tackle made by Tom Hanna. That's what I was talking about. You know, Marcus can do a lot of things. Not only is he a very fine runner, but here in the last few weeks, the Raiders have been exploiting his talents as a receiver.
No doubt about it. Watch him coming out of the backfield, right-hand side of your screen. They're trying to prevent a mismatch by putting a defensive back, Tommy Hannon, on Allen. He's on the outside. He puts about 4 or 5 quick moves on Hannon. He freezes him in his steps and then makes the reception.
Allen's 3rd catch of the afternoon for 22 yards. The Raiders have a 1st and 10 at the Minnesota 34-yard line. Play action pass. Intended for Branch, and it's complete. Cliff Branch knocked out of bounds by Rufus Bess.
And they've been picking on Rufus all year long, and if you get a one-on-one situation, man-to-man, even if it's a zone, it becomes man-to-man on that backside. Cliff Branch has all the moves, comes down, throws a quick fake, and Bess is giving him too much room, can't recover. Here's Wilson. actually gets a little bit of pressure, but you see how far off the defensive back is. Best. He's respecting Branch's speed.
And also, Rufus may have in the back of his mind all the times he's been burned so far this year. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Scott Studwell coming over to make the tackle.
You know, you talk about Marcus Allen being an all-purpose back, but at the moment, this season, as a receiver, he's been far more productive. Also in this game, he's now carried the ball for eight times, Jim, for a total of 3 yards. Not exactly a productive afternoon rushing the ball for Marcus Allen.
Sometimes I wonder if in the back of Marcus's mind, if he's starting to wonder, when is he really going to break loose for one of those big days rushing? 2nd and 9. That's Marcus in motion. Good protection for Wilson. Completes it. That's Malcolm Barnwell. Tackle made again by Tom Hannon.
Time. Wilson had plenty of time. The offensive line giving it to him. Poised, waiting, not edgy, comfortable with the offense. Here, Barnwell, they're in the zone, just comes down, breaks inside all the time. You see all the time? Just waits, makes the reception before being tackled by number 45, Tommy Hannon.
So Barnwell this afternoon has 5 receptions for 76 yards.
You see how he caught the ball in his hands? That's how the good receivers do.
8:53 left to go in the first half. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Oh, as he met at the line of scrimmage by Mark Mullaney.
You know, it's interesting, people talking about Marcus Allen someday possibly becoming a wide receiver, much the way Charlie Taylor did for the Redskins. And we said to him yesterday, hey, Marcus, are they going to change your number?
He said, nah, maybe in another 5 or 6 years to prolong his career. But Marcus is still a fine running back. He's only been at the running back position for about 5 or 6 years now. He just started to be a running back as a junior year in college here at SC. 2nd and goal. Kenny King and Marcus Allen in the backfield. And handoff goes to Marcus. Marcus Allen getting down to about the 5-yard line. Mark Mullaney again in and on the tackle.
And Marcus Allen just, if you are born to be a runner, that's what you want to do. You saw how wide Marcus's eyes got when we talked to him about the feeling when things are going well when you're running the ball. Talked about that almost feeling like Superman, indestructible, invincible.
Yeah, and I've played against, and you have too, against some running backs that when they get going like that, when they walk back to the huddle, they have a little switch about them. And I'm telling you, they really get cocky. 3rd and goal. Ball on the 5-yard line. Branch in motion. Wilson, back to pass. Looking into the end zone. Branch was open, and he threw it too late. Once again, Branch was open. Branch moved out of the passing lane. Todd Christensen came over. Tom Hannon and Carl Lee came over to knock the ball away.
Carl Lee made a great play, number 39. Take a look at Todd Christensen. And feel the amount of time. See, he throws a little fake, goes to the ground as though he's blocking, and then he gets in the end zone. But it's really a credit to the defense. See there, Lee, come make the play. Good ball reaction by the defensive backs from Minnesota.
Now, Chris Barr will come in to attempt a field goal of 22 yards. He's a perfect 3 of 3 from 20 to 29 yards, and he is a perfect 4 now. So Chris Barr comes in, kicks a field goal, gives the Raiders 3 points. So with 7 minutes and 21 seconds to go here in the first half, Minnesota leads the Raiders by 3.
Look who's entered the personal computer game now.
Can I get in on this?
Go ahead. Introducing the AT&T Personal Computer for Business. It's fast and flexible, runs most business software, and has a high-resolution screen for superb graphics. In short, everything you need to put your business ahead of the game.
Your move.
The AT&T Personal Computer. For the dealer nearest you, call 1-800-247-1212.
Give me a light. Bud Light.
If you just ask for a light beer, you never know what you'll get.
Give me a light. Bud Light.
So if you want the less filling light beer with the first name and taste, don't just ask for a light beer.
Hey, give me a light.
Ask them to bring out their best.
No, Bud Light.
Bud Light. Because everything else is just a light.
It's a wild place.
Chris Barr all set to kick off for Los Angeles. Back deep for Minnesota. Darren Nelson and Alfred Anderson. Barr just kicking a field goal to bring the Raiders to within 3 as they trail the Vikings now 13-10. That will be Darren Nelson. And he has a little bit of running room. Flag goes down about the 15-yard line. Darren Nelson run out of bounds at about the 19-yard line. Tackle made by Ted Watts. So Darren Nelson running east and west instead of north and south, and a penalty flag has been thrown. And it's holding against Minnesota. So that will put them in even deeper in their own territory. And here's where the Raider defense.
Number 68 on the return team. Half the distance.
That's
first
Curtis
and 10.
Rouse. Curtis Rouse. Look at this score. A final in overtime. It's Detroit beating Tampa Bay 13-7. And of course, next week, Detroit goes against this Minnesota Vikings team.
It was Gary Danielson, a 37-yard touchdown to Leonard Thompson. You mentioned the big guns. Detroit unleashed them. Leonard Thompson, Billy Sims, 16 carries for 100 yards.
That's next Sunday, and it all starts with the NFL today.
Big division game for Minnesota against Detroit next week.
First and 10 for the Vikings at their own 7-yard line. Here's Tommy Kramer. Inside handoff to Ted Brown. Howie Long comes in to make the tackle. And there's Rod Martin pushing Tim Irwin. So once again, we continue to see where the Raiders, and this is an area where the Raiders on defense really try to put it to you, and they really try to intimidate you. You're deep in your own territory. The pressure is on you. You have a 3-point lead, and the Raider defense knows that it's up to them to really turn this thing around.
And they can set the tempo, and we've talked about how the Raiders are in a fast first half, how they start off slowly and then bury you as the game goes on. So an important series for Tommy Kramer and the Vikings.
2nd and 9 at their own 8-yard line of Minnesota. Hand off to Ted Brown. Bob Nelson in on the tackle for the Los Angeles Raiders. Lyle Alzado getting into it now with Tim Irwin. Alzado being held back there by Matt Millen.
That is a heavyweight bout. Tim Irwin, a man with a very short temper, the designated fighter on the Raiders at 6'7", 288 against Lyle Alzado.
Remember yesterday, Tommy Kramer was telling us, a couple of years ago, the Viking offensive lineman, you really had to push him, you had to inspire him. He said, with this group, you don't have to do that. They're grouchy, they're grumpy. In particular, he named Tim Irwin.
3rd and long right here. Kramer has to get out of this hole to give some good field position.
5:40 left to go in the first half. Play action pass by Kramer. And it's complete. Mike Jones. So Tommy Kramer comes up with a big play, and Alzado and Tim Irwin are really getting into it. A flag goes down. There's Alzado and Tim Irwin. 2 flags go down.
Irwin, put your helmet back on. Don't you know that Alzado has a left hook that will put you into next week?
Or maybe Alzado ripped it off.
Yes. Alzado is a calm guy off the field, but when you get him riled, Tim Irwin is a worthy opponent. These two guys are serious.
Well, Irwin is 6'7" and 285. Alzado 6'3" and 260.
Personal foul, 77 defense. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, 76 offense. Fouls offset, but play counts.
The play counts is the important thing, because amidst all that fighting, you folks might forget that it was a first down. Tommy Kramer with a nice throw to Mike Jones. He's being covered by Mike Haynes, number 22. Jones makes a good move outside, shows some quickness, and Kramer throws that sidearm dart. See him dive right there? How about the tackle by Haynes? Now take a look at the fight, okay? The big guys, watch 77. They're going at it. They're going at it hard. Big and strong. Irwin, there's the right hook. Irwin doesn't like it. He says, hey, cut that stuff out.
I think Alzado was just a little frustrated because he wasn't able to get around the big fella.
And the big fella playing a different position, he moved over to the left tackle.
1st and 10 for Minnesota. Ball at their own 29-yard line. They lead the Raiders by 3. Inside handoff to Ted Brown. There's Alzado on the bottom of the pile making the tackle along with Bob Nelson.
You know, you talk a little about the offensive line from the Minnesota Vikings. Steve Riley, number 78, and Tim Irwin, 76, made a switch because Riley's having trouble with his left thumb, but they wanted number 76, Tim Irwin, to play that left side because Steckel said, look, we want him over there, and I was going to do it anyhow because we want our best player, pass protector, protecting the blind side of our quarterback.
Well, he's doing an admirable job now. 4:56 left to go in the first half. 2nd and 8 in Minnesota. Tommy Kramer at quarterback for the Vikings. Little misdirection. Here's Anderson. Gets away from Rod Martin, but he's tackled at about the line of scrimmage. There's Alzado again, along with Bob Nelson. So the Vikings, who told us yesterday that they want to run some misdirection plays against the Raider defense, try to get the Raiders to pursue in one direction and come back into the other. That's one reason why they scored the touchdown.
And with the new offensive line rules, where the offensive linemen can use their hands on running plays, the cutback has been very effective in the league this year, as a lot of the linebackers are pushed by the hole. How about this score?
Game 5 of the World Series. Detroit on top of San Diego already, 3-0.
And Detroit may wrap it up today. Boy, they jumped on top of San Diego in the first inning.
4 minutes left to go in the first half. 3rd and 8. Brown in motion. Kramer set to pass. Incomplete. Pressure provided by Alzado.
Alzado with the tattoo. Saying, wait a minute. See him throw his hand up in the air. He said, come back here. They're going at it again. They're going at it again, Jim.
Well, there's a flag thrown on the play. What Alzado did, I believe what the officials are going to call here is taunting, because he followed Tim Irwin as Irwin was walking off the field. He was hollering and screaming at him, it appeared from here, raising his fist up and shouting at him, and I believe that's what the call will be.
If that is indeed the call, it'll be a 5-yard penalty as he's talking to Martin and Millen about penalty.
Unsportsmanlike conduct, number 77, defense.
So what appeared to be a play where Alzado made a good play in pressuring the quarterback now becomes a penalty. It gives him another chance. Take a look at it again. Kramer knows there's pressure comes. Quick move inside, beat Irwin right now. That's a legal hit. No problem with that. The problem came, as you said, Jim, when they got into it. See him taunting him, throwing his hand in the air, saying, Irwin, I beat you right now. Kramer trying to keep him away.
Kramer's the last person in the world that should try and stop someone from fighting.
Defense, first down.
Kramer is a quarterback with courage, though. He will stand in there. He's feisty. That's one of the reasons that his teammates like him so much. As you look at the Raiders, 10 penalties and 98 yards. We're only in the second quarter.
And as we mentioned, this is when the Raider defense really like to intimidate you, because when they get behind, and the Raiders on defense, knowing the gentleman like I do, I know that they're very upset because there have been some defensive penalties against them, which has allowed Minnesota to have the lead. And it's 1st and 10. The Viking 43-yard line. Movement in the line of scrimmage, and the flag is thrown.
Jim, I have to ask you a question as we wait for this penalty call. You and I both know that teams sometimes use aggressive play, a penalty, to get themselves up when they're flat. As you look at Alzado, is he fired up? Do you think the Raiders are doing it intentionally to get themselves motivated for the Vikings?
You know, it's kind of hard to tell, but I do know that they're looking at each other now and they're saying, hey, we've got to get this thing under control. We've got to get back into this thing. And so what happens when you do that, the adrenaline starts to flow just a little bit more, and you sometimes take, and you get extra involved in a few things, and that's probably what's happening right now.
Because they were concerned about complacency, and maybe they were a little bit flat early, although they did score right away. Tom Flory said, we better be ready for this team because they're a good team. We've watched the film.
So it's 1st and 15 at the 38-yard line. Play action pass. Good protection. Ball thrown, and it is incomplete into and out of the hands of Darren Nelson. But I think one of the things that we talk about the Raider defense is that their intensity increases as the game goes along. And another thing that they know it takes 60 minutes to play a game of football, and that's how they wear people down at the end of the ball game. But Darren Nelson, young man who has a hamstring pull, did not start this afternoon, but in the times that we've seen him in the ball game, it has appeared as though that hamstring muscle isn't bothering him at all.
He's an explosive threat with great speed, the #1 draft choice out of Stanford in 1982.
Otis McKinney checks into the Raiders secondary. 2nd and 15. Kramer sets the pass again. The ball is tipped at the line of scrimmage and falls incomplete. Intended for Ted Brown. Greg Townsend, number 93, the man they call Ricochet Rabbit because he's so fast and quick out on the field, tipped the ball at the line of scrimmage.
Ricochet Rabbit? I love it. Watch him pick up the blitz. Number 55 on the blitz. You see the running back right there? Number 46, Alfred Anderson. He picks up Millen. And then it's just a great leap by your man on the outside, Greg Townsend, to tip the ball and prevent a completion.
He has great athletic ability. He comes in passing situations, puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, whether he is rushing or then, as we saw, tipping the ball. 3rd and 15, ball at the 38 of Minnesota. Sammy White, the speedster, checks in for the Vikings. Kramer set to pass. There's the pressure by Alzado. He gets away, but there's Ted Brown, who almost makes a one-handed catch, and there, covering him is Jack Squarick. Ted Brown, coming out of the backfield, almost came up with a one-handed catch, but it falls incomplete.
You want that running back, Ted Brown, on the linebacker. They've had problems at that left outside linebacker. Watch him coming out of the backfield. See Brown there circling out. Here, Kramer showing a lot of mobility coming off a knee injury, gets the ball up. Brown almost makes a great catch. See the one-handed catch? If Squarick didn't grab him by the legs, I think he would have had that ball. So that extra effort made the difference.
Greg Coleman in to punt for Minnesota. And, of course, that is Greg Pruitt at his own 20-yard line. Low snap, but Coleman gets it away. And Pruitt will have a chance to run it. He's at his 25. Good block by Derek Jensen, but he's hauled down from behind by number 47, Joey Browner. So the Los Angeles Raiders, who trail the Minnesota Vikings 13-10, will take over at their own 26-yard line with 3:20 to go.
You've got the spirit. You keep on coming through. Your pride is strong. You won't just make it do. With every job you leave a little bit of you. You forever, forevermore. Our commitment is to you.
We started with an idea, a spirit, a promise. It's a commitment to American farmers and truckers based on a simple idea: to help whenever we can, wherever we can, however we can. A promise that stands apart from guarantees and warranties, a spirit that will never expire. We started with an idea, and now, over a century and a half later, it's stronger than it ever was.
You forever, forevermore.
International Harvester, the commitment is forever.
Tuesday, a successful and happily married couple adopt a troubled child.
She's a scared little girl who says she doesn't want a mother.
Jacqueline Smith in Sentimental Journey, Tuesday.
Next Saturday on CBS Sports, a college football doubleheader. Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan shutting out Northwestern yesterday 31-0. Iowa beating Purdue 40-3.
Well, what about the day quarterback Chuck Long had 4 touchdown passes over 350 yards through the air?
The second game, UCLA versus California. John Lee kicking the game-winning field goal for the Bruins yesterday as they beat Washington State.
And, of course, Steve Bono, the injured Bruin quarterback, he's back. Strong arm throw. That should be one heck of a game.
3:21 left to go here in the first half. Here's the reverse, and it's a fake by Marcus Allen. And Marcus, who faked the reverse to Malcolm Barnwell, picks up enough yardage for the first down before he's finally tackled by John Swain.
And the Raiders, before that play, Jim, had rushed 10, 11 times for a total of 10 yards. So the ground game for the Raiders is just about invisible until this play right here. Take a look. Marcus Allen takes the pitch, fakes the reverse, puts it behind his hip, gets some good blocking out front, turns it upfield, gets the best gain of the afternoon on the ground, 12 yards for the Raiders.
Good block there thrown by Henry Lawrence. So Marcus, 11 rushes for only 17 yards, and that's very frustrating for a running back of Allen's caliber. But it is a first down. Here's Allen in motion. Wilson set to pass. Intended for Todd Christensen. John Swain, the nearest defender for the Minnesota Vikings.
Look at Christensen saying to himself, Mark, that was a knuckleball. Where do you think you are? I mean, Christensen just didn't have himself set, and Wilson didn't throw that ball very well.
Certainly didn't, as Todd was wide open. And you know that if Christensen can't make the reception, that's right.
What a year he had last year, huh? 92 receptions, incredible.
Minnesota now trying to apply a lot of pressure on the Raiders with 4 defensive linemen. Wilson set the pass. Good protection. Christensen almost comes up with an unbelievable left-handed catch. Rufus Best defending for Minnesota. And Christensen saying, my goodness, what a tough day at the office this has been so far.
Oh, no doubt about it. And he's just cutting across the field underneath the traffic. The flow is going in the opposite direction. Take a look at it here. Wilson, the ball. See the nose of the ball? It's wobbling. It's behind him. You're right. Christensen almost came back, but he can't hold it. Maybe he should get some stickums and less. Oh, that's outlaws.
Yes, thank you. That is right. 2 minutes and 25 seconds left to go in the first half. Third down conversions. You saw what it is for Los Angeles. Here's Wilson looking for a receiver. Mullaney comes in and applies the first pressure. Also Neil Elshire. Mark Mullaney, who's had a great afternoon so far, applied the initial pressure. And the officials ruled that Mark Wilson was in the grasp of Neil Elshire. There's Mullaney, who's just done a marvelous job this afternoon applying pressure.
Watch number 77, the man who replaced Carl Eller back in 1979. Gets some pressure, gets rid of his man. And there it's a question of grasp and control as Wilson, presence of mind, tries to lateral it to an offensive lineman, Dave Dalby, who says, hey, don't give me that ball. But one of the problems the Minnesota defense has had, Jim, is lack of pressure. Only 11 sacks, an average of less than 2 a game coming into today. They're a big sack to shut down a drive.
That will force a 4th down situation. So now the 2-minute notification is being given on the field. So with 2 minutes left to go in the first half, it is the Minnesota Vikings leading the Los Angeles Raiders 13-10. We'll be back in just a moment.
There's a time in life for the young to say, I want something else, a different way. The town's the same, the people too. School is over, need something to do. The services have it, it'll really show. You'll see new places, you'll really grow in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Challenge, adventure, excitement too, a time to enjoy and see something new. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You'll work hard, feel really free, serving your country for all to see in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Be part of a team, be friends forever. A part of the services you won't forget ever. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It's a great place to start.
My dandruff shampoo is good.
Maybe you should try something else. My dandruff shampoo really works.
Maybe you should try something else, like Selsun Blue. Doctors and pharmacists recommend Selsun Blue more than all other leading brands combined. It's #1. What that means to you is no leading brand gets rid of dandruff better than Selsun Blue. Ask your doctor or pharmacist, or try it yourself. That's all the proof you'll need. Selsun Blue. It's #1.
So Ray Guy, whose only punt this afternoon was for 55 yards, is back to kick again for Los Angeles. Darren Nelson back to receive for Minnesota at his 24-yard line. Another high punt for Guy. Nelson at the 14. And the little man is brought down. That's Todd Christensen, who snaps 4 punts, goes down, and he's in on the tackle along with Derek Jensen. Christensen, an all-purpose man today. Here are a couple of scores. Second quarter, Seattle over Buffalo. The Bills have finally scored at 17-7. Pittsburgh at halftime leading the 49ers, still 10-0. Steeler defense playing exceptionally well, and Washington over Dallas 17-7 also in the second period. So Tommy Kramer comes back on the field now for the Minnesota Vikings. 1 minute 47 seconds left to go in the first half. The Vikings have the ball 1st and 10 at their own 29-yard line. And they lead the Raiders 13-10. I'm Jim Hill along with John Dockery. Here's a correction, an update on the Pittsburgh score. Pittsburgh leads San Francisco 10-7 at halftime.
San Francisco awesome last week against the Giants. So that would be an upset.
There's an inside reverse. And it's a handoff to Alfred Anderson, but it does not fool the Raiders. Matt Millen along with Lyle Alzado in on the tackle.
Minnesota Vikings should not be satisfied with a 13-10 lead at the half because of the way the Raiders performed in the second half.
Minnesota still has all 3 timeouts left. Here's the toss back. That's Alfred Anderson. And Alfred Anderson tackled by Matt Millen. Another thing that we have to remember is that when there's a timeout that's been called on the field, the first timeout for the Vikings, we have to remember that Alfred Anderson, even though he's a rookie from Baylor, he can throw the ball. He's thrown the touchdown pass. He's thrown it to their fine quarterback in Tommy Kramer, so we have to be aware of that. 1:15 left to go. We'll be right back in just a moment.
You want to win, you got to practice stopping Sarinsky. Murphy, you're Sarinsky. You dog me, Sarinsky.
You guys getting the hang of this?
Bring out your best.
Your best deserves the best.
Bud Light.
The less filling light beer with a first name and taste.
Sarinsky's got some moves, huh?
In this uncertain and bewildering world of personal computers, the Tandy 2000 stands apart. In power, speed, and graphics, the Tandy 2000 is clearly superior. For service, support, and software, Tandy is clearly superior. Available exclusively at Radio Shack computer centers. Compare. You too will immediately recognize Tandy technology, service, and support are clearly superior.
Les Stickle, 38 years old, the youngest coach in the National Football League, must remember these games are 60 minutes long, and just because you have a 3-point lead against the defending world champions at halftime doesn't mean a thing. Not with the reputation you have. 3rd and 3 for Minnesota. Ball at their 36-yard line. Matt Millen on the blitz. And he takes down Kramer and calls timeout immediately.
Tells you about the Raider philosophy. We're going to get some points on the board. We're going to get that timeout quickly, see if we can get good field position, get our offense on the field for at least a field goal.
The second sack for the Raiders this afternoon.
Take a look at what imagine yourself an NFL quarterback and you see a huge guy in black and silver right there, Matt Millen, nobody blocking him, 250 pounds of truck coming out.
It's a 4th down situation. And that means Greg Coleman will come on to punt for Minnesota. Greg Pruitt is back at his own 30-yard line. And here's a great situation right now for the Raiders. 2 timeouts left. A minute to go. When they get the ball with their offense, they'll have about a minute and 2 seconds left to go, and that will be plenty of time, providing that Pruitt gets a decent run back. That's plenty of time to march down the field and to at least get into field goal range.
Exactly, and Tom Flores is talking to Mark Wilson about that. They expect to get the ball back somewhere around 35, 40-yard line. So really, Jim, to get into field goal range, they'd have to go about 35 yards. Or for a touchdown, there's plenty of time left. As you mentioned, 1:12, 2 timeouts. So Raiders want to put something on board, at least try to tie this game before they go in.
There's the man they hope will put them into excellent field position, Greg Pruitt. Coleman tries to kick away from him. Pruitt at the 28-yard line. Excellent job of getting away from a couple of tacklers. Greg Pruitt, a brilliant run. There's a flag on the play, and Pruitt gets up to about the Raider 44-yard line, but there is a flag on the play.
Pruitt did an outstanding job. He slips down. There are 2 Vikings all over him. They don't break down. He gets up, and he makes good yardage. But as you mentioned, there is a penalty. Pruitt's pointing to the Vikings, so we'll take a look.
A 44-yard punt and a 16-yard return.
Personal foul. Number 47, defense on the run back. Enforced from the end of the play, 1st down.
That's against Joey Browner. So you combine that 16-yard run back along with the personal foul penalty against Minnesota, and immediately the Raiders are in Minnesota Viking territory.
See him slip right down there, has a presence of mind to get up, and then makes a quick move to evade the first line of tacklers who did not break down. Take a look at Joey Browner, number 47, coming right. I don't see the personal foul, but they tacked it on. Raiders have great field position.
1st and 10 at the Viking 41-yard line. And don't forget, the Raiders have 2 timeouts left. Here's Wilson set to pass. Complete to Christensen. Tackled immediately by Tom Hannon. Pickup of about 9 yards. Todd Christensen and the Raiders in their hurry-up offense. 43 seconds left to go in the first half. Wilson set to pass again. Good protection. Dumps it off to Marcus Allen. Flag is thrown as Allen is tackled by Scott Studwell. There's a flag thrown, and it's going to be holding against the Raiders.
Yes, it is, and it looked like number 73, Neil Elshire, was getting some pressure. And that is a big break for the Minnesota Vikings.
Holding, number 79, offense. Still second down.
That's Bruce Davis.
And number 73, as I mentioned, was getting some pressure on Mark Wilson. Bruce Davis comes up with a hold. That moves him back.
But what Tom Flores is probably yelling to Wilson now is, hey, listen, we still have enough time. We still have 2 timeouts. There are 33 seconds left to go in the first half. Don't panic. Take it easy. Everything will be all right if we execute.
And Mark Wilson is not about to panic. They view their quarterback situation as almost 2 starting quarterbacks.
So let's see if the Raiders can execute. Wilson knocked away by Rufus Bess. Intended for Malcolm Barnwell.
Rufus, I don't understand. Defensive backs with the best hands on the field looked like he could have intercepted that ball. Intended for Barnwell, thrown a little bit late. Good ball reaction by Bess. Does not come down with an interception, and that may come back to haunt them because if they get any points on the board, take a look at it right here. See Bess, he goes up, like a little bit of a casual effort as he put up his left hand. I know he was going high in the air, but couldn't pull it down.
We'll soon find out. A lot of people have been picking on Rufus Bess. 3rd and 12. Viking 43. Here's Wilson. Across the middle, intended for Christensen, almost intercepted. Carl Lee had the ball bounce right off his chest after it originally bounced off the hands of Todd Christensen.
Christensen was doing battle trying to get open, and that ball is almost intercepted. If you take a look at it here, watch the protection. Mullaney, they're on an in tackle game switching. That's Holloway up the middle. Put some pressure. See him fighting right there. The ball looked like it might have been tipped a little bit. Number 39, Carl Lee, second-year man out of Marshall, can't make the interception.
That's Darren Nelson, who is deep to receive the punt for the Vikings. And, of course, Ray Guy will punt for Los Angeles. 23 seconds left to go in the first half. And on the other foot now, Minnesota has 2 timeouts left. So if they get in pretty good field position, let's see what they try and do. Guy angling to the near sidelines. Into and out of the end zone. So Minnesota will take over 1st and 10 at their own 20-yard line with 16 seconds left to go in the first half. And Ray Guy a little disappointed that he didn't get the ball out of bounds, at least inside the 10-yard line, to put Minnesota in bad field position. 16 seconds to go in the first half. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Joe Sensor, the Minnesota Vikings. I'm one of more than 300 NFL players who have brought you United Way public service messages over the past 10 years. Perhaps you'll remember the spot I did on adoption for hard-to-place children.
As a child, he lost one of his parents and was in an orphanage for 6 years.
I know what it feels like when sometimes you don't feel loved and you don't feel cared. And it's a very hurt feeling.
Let's give every child...
All of the children who appeared in that spot with me have been placed. And this one was Bobby, just one of the children that millions of people saw in that spot. And this is Bobby today with his new parents, Don and Ann. But there are still children who are waiting. I receive letters from people who have seen the spot and decided to adopt a child. For me, that's the best evidence that United Way is working. You can be a part of it. Be a United Way volunteer. Because thanks to you, it works for all of us. United Way.
This message furnished by the National Football League.
Back at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, I'm Jim Hill along with John Docker. The Minnesota Vikings surprising a lot of people here in Los Angeles by leading the Los Angeles Raiders and coming up at halftime. Scores and highlights with Brent and Irv. 16 seconds left to go in the first half.
And there were some interesting games, Jim, and enough some upsets. How about Chicago losing to St. Louis and Detroit beating Tampa Bay?
There's a flag on the play. The Vikings are just trying to run the clock out and go in at halftime with a 3-point lead, but a flag has been thrown.
Offside. 68 offense lined up in the zone.
Curtis Rouse, 6'3", 318 pounds. The anchor. And I would imagine right now that Tom Flores is thinking about what he's going to do and say at halftime. He pretty well sees what Minnesota is going to do. The Vikings are apparently going to be content and just to go in at halftime with a 3-point lead. And Tom Flores thinking about what his opposition is thinking of right now. And I think Les Stickle is trying to say, you know, I'm pretty well pleased with the way that we have performed in the first half. Of course, the Raider defense came up with some penalties that really allowed us to take the lead, but he's thinking about what he's going to have to say at halftime. As both coaches remember, it is a game that's played in 60 minutes and not just 30, because the Raiders are notorious for coming back in the last 30 minutes to win ball games. So that's the end of the first half here at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, California. As Les Stickle trots off the field with his Minnesota Vikings, leading Tom Flores and his Los Angeles Raiders by the score of 13-10. Kenny King and his statistics coming into today's contest.
Hasn't exactly carried the ball that often, only 16 times coming into the game versus Marcus Allen, who is doing the bulk of the carries with 109 rushes coming in for 384 yards.
11 minutes and 44 seconds left to go in the third period. 2nd and 7. Play action pass. Wilson back. Across the cliff, Branch. Tom Hannon, number 44. And Scott Studwell back defending for Minnesota.
Now, you told me, we talked to Charlie Joyner, we talked to Isaac Curtis, those old wide receivers in the game. They said they don't like to come over the middle anymore. They like to go on the out patterns. But you tell me Cliff Branch will come over the middle and doesn't hear footsteps. See him in the middle in the slot there, comes down across the middle, finds the hole, ball is thrown behind him a little bit, tries to make the one-handed catch. You say he's not concerned about coming over the middle.
No, he'll run across the middle. Cliff Branch is a different kind of receiver.
After 13 years, I think he'd know better.
He has a big heart. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen gets to the outside. Picks up enough yardage for the first down. Good inside move. Gets down to about the 23-yard line before he's tackled finally by Rufus Bess.
You know, you can hold Marcus Allen for a while, but sooner or later, he's going to do it to you. Remember him in the Super Bowl, that 74-yard run here? Dips inside, breaks outside, has deceiving speed, then puts a move right there on number 39, Carl Lee, to get some extra yards. So quick.
17 yards on the carry then by Marcus Allen, who leads the AFC in total yards with 760, most of that passing. Play action pass again. Wilson, plenty of protection. Complete to Kenny King. Carl Lee in on the tackle for the Vikings, along with Scott Studwell.
And the Minnesota Vikings play that straight zone. What the Raiders are trying to do to attack that is just flood areas. That time, Todd Christensen was behind King to one side. King was in front. Marcus Wilson picked him out, gained a couple of yards.
3 to be exact, and it is 2nd and 7. Ball at the Viking 20-yard line. The Raiders trail by 3, but they are on the move. Cliff Branch and Malcolm Barnwell at the top of the screen. Good protection again for Wilson. Plenty of time, and he takes off and starts to run. And Wilson goes down at about the 15-yard line. Scott Studwell covering him there. So you have to credit the Vikings secondary for doing a good job of covering the wide receivers and Todd Christensen downfield for the Raiders, because he had plenty of time to throw.
You know, Mark Wilson has been criticized in the past for not having much mobility. He said he resents that conversation, those kinds of critics who say, I'm just a statue back there. He does have some mobility. He's healthy. He's in his 5th year, and that time he comes close to the first down by rushing the ball.
3rd and 2, ball at the 15-yard line of Minnesota.
3rd and 2.
Here's Wilson. Complete to Allen. Tackle made by Robin Sinline. Allen gets inside the 10-yard line, down to about the 7, where it will be 1st and goal for Los Angeles.
You can see part of the reason that the Raiders are so comfortable with Mark Wilson at quarterback. Most teams would panic if their starting quarterback was hurt. the way Jim Plunkett was hurt. But Wilson has the poise. That time, he was looking for Cliff Branch on the left side, saw he was covered, wasn't coming open, just flipped it back for the first down.
First and goal for the Raiders at the Viking 8-yard line.
First and goal.
Hand off to Frank Hawkins. Hawkins gets through the middle of the line of scrimmage before he's finally tackled by Matt Blair. He gets down to about the 6-yard line.
And also down here, a guy like Mark Wilson with mobility, being a healthy quarterback, adds that extra problem for a defense. You roll out, you have that pass run option, you put pressure on a defensive team.
And especially the way his offensive line has been blocking. They've been giving him plenty of time. That really puts a lot of pressure on the secondary. Barnwell and Cliff Branch at the top of the screen. Second and goal from the 6. Wilson set to pass. Great protection again. Lofting it for Branch. Out of bounds. Carl Lee defending for Minnesota.
I don't care what the crowd's doing. I don't care if they're booing. Branch's foot stepped on that white line the way I see it. But to ask a defensive back like number 39, Carl Lee, to cover that long, and the offensive line just gave him forever. Watch them. They're coming all the way across the field. Take a look. That's Branch in the middle, coming all the way across. Left to your screen. There's Lee. He jumps. Lee can't get to the ball. See Branch? 1, second foot. Left foot down out of bounds. Good call. Take a look at it again. Here's the ball. Branch. 1 foot. The other foot. No good.
Third and goal from the 6. Wilson's going to pass again. No apparent Raider receiver in the vicinity. The nearest Raider was number 79, Bruce Davis.
An important sequence for the Minnesota Vikings as they hold the Raiders, keep them out of the end zone, and force them into a game-tying field goal attempt.
So Chris Barr will come in and try to tie the game up with a field goal attempt for the Raiders. Dave Dalby will be the snapper. Wilson will hold, and Chris Barr will attempt a 24-yard field goal. And from this distance, he's perfect, 4 for 4, including a 24-yarder earlier. And he puts through another. So behind the 24-yard field goal by Chris Barr, the Los Angeles Raiders have tied their game with the Minnesota Vikings. 7:47 left to go in the third period.
Recently, 2 American travelers dined at the Paris home of the famous chef, Anne Willem. The hostess, who founded Paris's La Varenne cooking school, served a special Chablis that had won first prize in a prestigious competition. The guests were complimentary. And when asked where the award-winning Chablis might be purchased,
Anne, do you know where?
the chef replied,
Why, I should think just about any way you like.
Chablis Blanc from Ernest and Julio Gallo. All the best.
Dan, something for your desk.
Vice President.
You've earned it.
Today, Chevrolet has something for you, too. Discover Caprice Classic.
Now it's here. Your reward. Just lean back. It's all yours.
Caprice, now even better with electronic fuel injection standard, plus traditional full-size comfort and prestige you've earned.
So this is today's Chevrolet.
Welcome to the club.
Drive today, Chevy. Live today, Chevy.
Live it.
Chevy.
Van McElroy, the fine safety for the Raiders, is out of the game right now. We get reports that he is dehydrated. Of course, we understand that he had a little bit of the flu bug earlier in the week. And with the time that the Raider defense has been spending on the field, you can see why he can be dehydrated. Chris Barr just kicked a field goal, kicks off. Ball coming to Darren Nelson, 1 yard deep in the end zone. Darren Nelson tackled by James Davis. Also, Doki Williams down for the Raiders.
And you mentioned Van McElroy being dehydrated. And, of course, we know that the Raiders throughout this young season have been a second-half team. But you know what? The Minnesota Vikings are one of the finely conditioned teams in the league. They're not going to wilt.
Join CBS Sports next Sunday for exciting NFL action. Detroit at Minnesota from the Metrodome in Minneapolis.
Of course, Detroit won today in overtime, so now their record is 2-5. They're going to creep up in that Central Division. Minnesota has to beware today and next week here on CBS.
Minnesota better be concerned about the gentlemen in the black jerseys now because the game is all tied. The Vikings have the ball. First and 10 at their 25. Anderson in motion. Kramer's all set to pass. Into and out of the hands of Ted Brown. Matt Millen making the tackle there for the Raiders. Third quarter score. Seattle over Buffalo by 3, 24-21. Here's a game. The 49ers have come back. They've tied the Steelers at 10-10 in the fourth period. In the third quarter, Washington leading Dallas by 20, 27-7. 7 minutes, 32 seconds left to go in the third period. 2nd and 10 for the Vikings. Tommy Kramer trying to move his Minnesota team down the field after taking an early lead to watch the Raiders come back and tie it. Mike Jones in motion, and Kramer's going to try and pass again. Throwing right down the middle of the field. It's complete to Jones. Tackle made by Matt Millen. So the man who went in motion, what the Vikings talked about yesterday, they're going to try and show him a lot of different formations. Throws it, and it is complete to him.
If you see a motion man, it's hard to get a bump on a motion man. See him in there, right, Mike Jones. And now he slips inside, and they let him go. Kramer with a quick delivery. See him right over the middle, wide open. Of course, Jones is the man that caught the long touchdown in the first half. Having a good afternoon, Mike Jones.
That touchdown pass was good for 70 yards. But now it's a 1st and 10 for the Vikings. The draw play to Ted Brown. Ted Brown is tackled by Howie Long. So Minnesota picks up about 2 yards, 2.5 yards, and we're going to call it 2nd and 7.
Howie's saying to himself, we got to get something going here. Got to make something happen. Of course, Howie is the man that can do it. They look for a mismatch that Raider defense does. They try to put Howie over someone who's a mismatch. He's so strong and so quick that you'll see him move around inside, outside, all over the defensive line.
Ted Brown, a lone setback for the Vikings. Inside draw to Brown. He tries to get away from pressure. Here's Squarick. Jack Squarick coming in from his linebacking position, forces him out of bounds at just about the line of scrimmage. So Jack Squarick, the young man who suffered a broken jaw in a preseason contest against the Miami Dolphins, comes up and drives Ted Brown out of bounds.
And if there's any problem that the Raider defense has had, it's been at that left outside linebacker. You mentioned Squarick's injury. Jeff Barnes plays on passing situations. Stanley Adams is on injured reserve. That's why they got Brad Van Pelt from Minnesota this week.
Van Pelt will not play today. He won't be activated until tomorrow.
They hope he's going to be able to fill in the Ted Hendricks role.
The Raiders have 5 defensive backs in. This is what they call their pirate defense. Kramer calling an audible at the line of scrimmage. There's the blitz. Greg Townsend. Greg Townsend fulfilling his specialty role as a pass rusher. You just got a good example of why they call him Ricochet Rabbit, because he's so quick. There are not that many offensive linemen who can really block him.
And they take a look at it again here. The Raiders are a team. See the blitz coming up the middle. It's picked up by Ted Brown right there. But on the outside, here he comes for the sack, number 93, Greg Townsend. Of course, the Raiders had 21 sacks coming into the game. They were 3rd in the AFC.
It's Greg Pruitt back to receive for Los Angeles. Greg Coleman punting for the Vikings. Good high punt. Good, lets it bounce inside the 10-yard line, and it dies. A great bounce there for the Minnesota Vikings. And the ball is down at about the 7-yard line there by Joey Browner.
Now the Raiders have 3 sacks this afternoon for 28 yards. Take a look at it again, right here. See on the outside, number 93 with the big outside rush. Kramer with the deep drop didn't have time to step up because there was pressure up the middle. So the Raiders get the sack. They get the ball back deep in their own territory as they try to break a tie here at the Coliseum.
I see you enjoy the finer things in life.
Why, yes.
Then you'll enjoy today's Chevrolet Celebrity Eurosport.
Come on in, get the feel. Enjoyment waits at the wheel as the road comes alive.
Special sports suspension, Euro styling.
As solid as it takes every set we got.
Monday. Next Sunday, a CBS Sports special, John. America's Marathon Chicago with some of the finest marathon runners really in the world.
the two gold medalists, Carlos Lopes, the Olympic champion, also Joan Benoit. And Jim, can any of us forget Joan Benoit winning that, running through the streets of LA and coming into this stadium to win the Olympic gold?
She defeated Greta Vakes. A great run for her. But here, it's the Raiders trying to come up with some great runs of their own, and that's not a great one by Marcus Allen, as the Vikings have pretty much handled Allen so far this afternoon from the running back position. With 5 minutes and 23 seconds left to go, Charlie Johnson and Fred McNeil in on the tackle for Minnesota. Marcus Allen, who you can understand why he is a little frustrated. 14 carries, only 45 yards this afternoon. 2nd and 8. Ball at the Raider 10-yard line. After a great punt by the Vikings, Greg Coleman. Play action pass. Wilson moving around. Good protection. Throws back, intended for Todd Christensen, but there's a flag on the play. John Swain, number 29, defending.
There are times, Jim, you know you played defensive back in the NFL for a lot of years. There are times that you have such great coverage on a receiver that you're there too soon with nothing to do.
Interference, number 54, first down.
And they didn't call it on John Swain, number 29. Rather, they called it on number 54, Fred McNeil. So that's a bit of a surprise. Take a look at it again. Little play action fake, not too much. Rolls out, was actually looking down this sideline, didn't have a man open. Watch him come back right here to find his secondary receiver. And that looked like it, but no, it was John Swain, 29. They called it on Fred McNeil, number 54.
Toss back to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen fumbles, and the Vikings recover. So Marcus Allen, who has not had a good day rushing, fumbles the ball, and Carl Lee comes up with the recovery, giving the Vikings good field position as Minnesota will take over 1st and 10 at the Raider 31-yard line.
And that was a case of Marcus Allen trying to cut back, being hit hard from the backside. And one of the problems that the Minnesota Vikings have had this year is they have not come up with a big play. There, they create a fumble, the defense does, and gives good field position to the offense. Take a look at it again. See it come out of the pile. See him struggling, and then he's hit from the backside. A big hit by Fred McNeil, number 54. And Carl Lee, 39, grabs the recovery.
1st and 10 for Minnesota. The Raider 31. Anderson in motion. Pitch out to Ted Brown. This is Darren Nelson who just came in. Darren Nelson, there's a flag on the play right at the last moment. Brown went out. Darren Nelson came in, and I think it may have caught the Raiders by surprise.
5-yard face mask foul, number 30, defense.
Oh, wow, Jim.
Stacy Turan.
Of course, there are some new faces in that Raider backfield. Van McElroy on the bench with dehydration.
Forced from the end of the run.
But remember, early in the ball game, it was at this end of the field where the Raider defense came up with like 2 or 3 penalties, which enabled Minnesota to go on in and take the lead.
I want to see if we can take a look and see if we can find number 30 at the end of this play with the face mask. See him right there, grab on, yanks Ted Brown's head around for the penalty.
1st and 10 for Minnesota. Inside handoff. Bob Nelson bringing Ted Brown down from behind. And now the Raiders once again on defense trying to really psych themselves up, pump themselves up just a little bit more, and you see the frustration coming out.
Boy, take a look at the top of your screen here, and you see a great read by number 51, Nelson. Comes across. Ball carrier has no chance whatsoever. Good play by linebacker.
So now Greg Townsend checks in. Lyle Alzado comes out along with Bob Nelson. Nelson is replaced by Otis McKinney. That gives the Raiders 5 defensive backs. 2nd and 12. Ball at the Raider 18-yard line. Here's Kramer set to pass. The ball is complete to Steve Jordan. Lester Hayes on the coverage for Los Angeles. Steve Jordan.
And you have to admire Tommy Kramer. He was being pressured by big Howie Long, 6'5", 270 pounds. Take a look at it. Kramer shows some quickness. See him coming on the right side there. Watch Howie Long. See him? The ball wobbles a little bit, but still Jordan along the sideline makes the reception. 3rd-year man out of Brown.
So now Bill Piquel, Al Zato, Sean Jones report in for Los Angeles. Townsend making great substitutions. There are numerous substitutions. Here's the toss back, and that's Anderson. Down to about the goal line. Alfred Anderson is tackled by Matt Millen.
What Alfred Anderson does, the rookie out of Baylor, 6'1", 224, is gives the Vikings something they haven't had for a long time. That's a quick runner with power and speed inside. Here he shows some of it. See him bounce off some tacklers. It's very close to the goal line.
It will be 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. The Vikings have 3 tight ends in the game now. Jordan motion. And Kramer fumbles the ball on the snap from center. Jack Squire comes in to cover him up for Los Angeles. It appeared then that they were going to try and get the ball to Ted Brown on an off-tackle play. But once again, the Vikings making those, what they call silly mistakes, which will hold them off from trying to get into the end zone.
The Vikings self-destructed last week here. Kramer just doesn't get the exchange. He had it for a moment, and then he just drops it, and he was looking to give it to Tim Brown. And then he tries to make some yardage on his own, and they almost ripped the ball out of his hand. Gets a little rough down by the goal.
Certainly does. Rod Martin, one of the Raiders trying to snatch the ball away from Kramer. Kramer loses about a yard, half a yard. 1:55 left to go in the 3rd period. Play action pass. Into the end zone, complete, touchdown. Mike Mularkey.
Give Tommy Kramer credit. Mularkey makes his 3rd reception of the year. Les Steckel's got to be delighted. That time Kramer with a fake was looking for Ted Brown out of the backfield. The Raiders weren't fooled. They're a sophisticated defense. But watch Kramer. Gives a little bit of a fake to Anderson. Now he's looking for Brown out of the backfield. Doesn't find him. Comes back to his 3rd wide receiver. Finds Mularkey in the end zone for the touchdown. And you know what? The Vikings are taking the momentum, Jim.
Jan Stinnerud in to attempt the extra point conversion. It's good as 4 flags go down. We also should mention that on that touchdown pass, there's a good block there by Alfred Anderson picking up a blitzing Matt Millen.
12 men on the field against the defense. Point is good. Tacked onto the kickoff.
So the Raiders had 12 men on the field. Jan Stinnerud's extra point conversion was good.
You see Kramer looking one way. He looks the other way. Finally comes back to his 3rd wide receiver. Throws a duck into the end zone. Doesn't matter. Mularkey has it. Cuddles it. Holds on. And the Vikings take the lead here at the Coliseum.
Looks like your
NCR.
Tell you what, John, a victory by the Vikings today, but we still have plenty of time left, and it puts them right back into the thick of things in the Central Division of the NFC.
Especially with Detroit winning today. Big play. Billy Sims 100 yards in the ground. Gary Danielson a touchdown to Leonard Thompson in overtime. So this is tightening up as Chicago loses.
20-7 Minnesota, 20-13 Minnesota. Jan Stinnerud kicking off. This is Dokie Williams at about the 3. Dokie Williams gets up across the 20-yard line before he's tackled by Maurice Turner. And that's where the Los Angeles Raiders will take over 1st and 10. And I'm wondering right now, we look at Tom Flores, and he's talking to Mark Wilson, and you kind of wonder what those two are talking about right now as we have 1:35 left to go in the 3rd period.
Well, I don't think it's a case of complacency. I mean, Flores was a little bit concerned about that, and so was Al Davis, as we said earlier in the show. But I think the Raiders do have some intensity here. I think the Vikings are just taking it away from them.
And they're doing what Les Steckel wants them to do, play hard. Play action pass with Wilson back to pass. Completing flat to Marcus Allen. Allen gets away from Matt Blair. Picks up about 6.5, 7 yards before he's finally tackled by Charlie Johnson.
And to Wilson's credit, he's doing what he said would be demanded of him. He said they play that deep zone. I don't think they're going to give us anything way downtown. I think I'm going to have to be patient, drop things off to my backs, use a high possession game. Here he flips it over to Marcus. He makes a good move on Matt Blair. just coming back off that knee surgery. Not the player he was a couple of years ago right there, but he will get back into shape.
5 catches for Marcus this afternoon, good for 35 yards. 2nd and 4. Ball at the 27-yard line of the Raiders. Marcus Allen and Kenny King in the backfield. Here's Wilson. Across the middle, intended for Malcolm Barnwell. It looked like Malcolm slipped just a little bit there before Scott Studwell and Dennis Johnson came over to defend. You see some inspirational defensive performances coming up by the Vikings right now, and Mark Wilson is, I'm sure he's not starting to wonder about this particular ball game, but I think he's becoming even more concerned because the Vikings are starting to play better and better as this game goes along.
I was shocked that he said he was really nervous and edgy coming into this game, though his stats wouldn't suggest that he's having a good afternoon.
Yeah, right. 5 defensive backs in for Minnesota. Wilson almost had it picked off by Carl Lee. The nearest receiver for the Raiders was Todd Christensen, and Todd is looking at Mark. Mark's looking back at Todd. Obviously, of course, they got their signals confused on that pass play.
And Mark said he was edgy because of the expectations coming in. Yes, he is getting a big start, and who knows what will happen if he does well at quarterback and they win a whole bunch of games. Will Plunkett be the quarterback? But take a look at it right here. It's just a bad throw. Christensen. Right there, the ball's overthrown, and Mark Wilson off the mark.
So Ray Guy comes in to punt for Los Angeles, his longest of the afternoon, 57 yards. Darren Nelson, the speedster, back to receive at his own 25. Guy gets off a beautiful punt. Goes out of bounds at the Minnesota Viking 18-yard line. So that's where the Vikings will take over 1st and 10 as Minnesota leads Los Angeles 20-13 behind that 55-yard punt.
Set.
Those are the only two that really feel good, I would imagine, about the ball game here as far as the Raiders are concerned. On the other side of the field, the Minnesota Vikings, maybe those are Viking fans.
They're wearing some Raider colors, though. I don't think so.
The Vikings lead the Raiders 20-13. 1st and 10. The Minnesota 18-yard line. Tommy Kramer tosses back to Alfred Anderson. Alfred Anderson fumbles the ball, and the Raiders get it back. Jack Squarick, one of the people in, and he makes the fumble recovery.
Alfred Anderson, the rookie out of Baylor, trying for some extra yards. This is a tough break for the offense. Here he takes the pitch. They're stringing it out here. Watch Matt Millen coming up, makes a big hit on him. The ball pops out. That's number 71, Piquel. Bill Piquel ripping the ball away. Raiders come up with it in great field position.
It'll be 1st and 10 for Los Angeles.
Take a look at the ground level. Right there, Howie Long fighting off some tackles. Here he's hit by a couple of guys. The ball pops up. Raiders get it back.
And they're at the line of scrimmage right now. The handoff, inside handoff to Frank Hawkins. Hawkins tackled by Charlie Johnson. Picked up about 3.5 yards. And this is a position from a defensive standpoint you really don't want to be in. You just had a turnover by your offensive unit. You give the offense, who is very explosive like the Raiders, a great opportunity to score. And Henry Lawrence, number 70, the fine all-pro offensive tackle for the Raiders, is down on the field. Henry Lawrence, who for so many years now, this is his 11th year out of Florida A&M. He has 2 Super Bowl championship rings. And he is down on the field injured. He'll be replaced by Shelby Jordan. Nine seconds left to go here in the 3rd period. Finals from this afternoon. Earlier this afternoon, the New York Giants defeating Atlanta 19-7.
Oh, that's an upset. That's a real surprise. The Giants were having their problems. They were buried by San Francisco on Monday night.
Other scores, finals. It's the Jets over Cleveland, 24-20.
Hooray, Jets win. They continue to win. Not against good competition, but they're still winning.
Miami defeating Houston 28-10.
We expect that. Marino and company, boy, they are unstoppable, still undefeated.
That's right, a perfect record now. And St. Louis defeating Chicago 38-21.
St. Louis last week, they beat Dallas. This week, they come back and beat Chicago. That division continues to tighten up. Kansas City took it over San Diego 31-13.
Other scores this afternoon: New England beating Cincinnati 20-14. It is Detroit over Tampa Bay in overtime. 16-7. That's the final score. Philadelphia over Indianapolis. And the Rams beating New Orleans 28-10. As we look at Henry Lawrence walking off the line of scrimmage and off the sidelines, and it appears that he is okay. And that is the end of the third quarter. With the score, the Minnesota Vikings 20, the Los Angeles Raiders 13. We pause now for a word from your local station.
Next Saturday, a twin bill of college football. Big Ten rivals Michigan and Iowa clash, and UCLA battles California next Saturday on CBS Sports. This is CBS.
In a time of advanced technology and luxury cars, the 1985 Oldsmobile 98 Regency Brougham is the epitome of road management. Independent suspension on all four wheels keeps one oblivious to road conditions. The new multi-port fuel-injected power system assures spirited response. This is the luxury of precise performance.
There is a special feel.
Perfect timing.
In an Oldsmobile.
A copier is one of those things people notice when it's not working. Which is why an IBM Model 60 tends to become invisible. It's so reliable, people take it for granted.
Just one quick copy?
Oh, sure.
It's easy to use and has all the features you'd expect in a much more expensive copier, which makes it the kind of value you don't see every day. The invisible copier from IBM.
An important message for seafood lovers. Don't stop at Red Lobster.
Don't stop?
Announcing the all-you-can-eat special. For a limited time, there's no limit on oceans of clam strips, fried or broiled fish, and everybody's favorite popcorn shrimp, served with all the trimmings. All you can eat at Red Lobster, only $6.95. Once it starts, you won't stop.
I'll say.
All you can eat, $6.95 every Sunday through Thursday.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Subaru. Inexpensive and built to stay that way. Wagner, the right tool for painting. And by Skoal Bandits, tobacco in a neat little pouch. It's a little pouch of pleasure.
Les Stickle, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, who right now is trying to encourage his defense to hold on and don't give up anything except a field goal opportunity, while on the other side of the line of scrimmage, Tom Flores, the head coach of the world champions, hoping that his offensive unit, led by Mark Wilson, can get into the end zone and tie the game up. 2nd and 7, all at the 17-yard line of Minnesota. Mark Wilson set to pass, complete to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen continuing to get away from people, dancing, darting his way down to just inside the 10-yard line before he's finally tackled by Mark Mullaney and Carl Lee.
How does he do this? I mean, he's like a magician on feet. Take a look at it right here. Tommy Hannon has a good shot, breaks down. Wilson just flips it out, an easy pass. And watch him right here. He appears to be grabbed right there by number 45, Hannon. He misses. Matt Blair misses. 3 or 4 others. He looks like a matador dodging a bull. So quick with great body control.
Outstanding runner in Marcus Allen.
Outstanding wide receiver as well. 6 receptions, 42 yards so far.
Fourth quarter just getting underway. 14-15 left. Inside handoff to Frank Hawkins. Hawkins battling his way inside the 5-yard line before he's tackled by Carl Lee. And you think about the Vikings right now, only 3 teams have given up more points than the Viking defense so far this year. The Vikings have given up, going into this ball game, 164 points. Other
27
teams,
points a game. You're right. They've had their problems on giving up points.
Indianapolis, Houston, and Buffalo, the other 3 teams that have given up more points than Minnesota. 2nd and goal. All on the 4. Hawkins again. Frank Hawkins down to about the 1-yard line. Scott Studwell in on the tackle for Minnesota.
Dalby, number 50, Davis, 79, Charlie Hanna, 73, leading the charge in the middle of that big Raider offensive line. Raiders have always had that size in the offensive line. That's their formula for success. Get a huge offensive line, a good wide receiver, and protect your quarterback.
Shelby Jordan and Kirk Marsh in the offensive line up now in that big offensive line for the Raiders. 3rd and goal. Ball at the 1-yard line. The Raiders trail by 7. Marcus Allen and Frank Hawkins in the backfield. Hand off to Marcus Allen. He dives in for the score.
It's almost as though this crowd expects it. Yeah, these are our Raiders. We know they're going to come back, much the way they've done in other games this year. As Allen takes it over the top with his patented airplane move.
And he's talking to Greg Pruitt right there. And Marcus will tell you that if there's any individual who has really helped him out as a running back since he's come to the Raiders, it's been the experience of Greg Pruitt. Here's the extra point attempt. Wilson holds it. And Barr puts it right through the middle, and our game is tied.
Take a look at Marcus over the top. Everyone knows he's going to do it, and the Vikings almost get a piece of him to prevent him from getting in. He launches himself right here, 7:47, but see how he's hit early? It just comes down right on the goal line.
And that's all you have to do, break the plane of the goal line. So with that 1-yard dive by Marcus Allen, 12:52 left to go in the final period, game is tied.
Pouch of pleasure.
So after that 1-yard dive by Marcus Allen and the extra point conversion, the Raiders have come back to tie the Minnesota Vikings at 20-all. And here, the Detroit Tigers have scored in the bottom of the 5th inning. They lead the San Diego Padres 4-3. Game 5 of the World Series. The Tigers lead that best-of-7 series 3-1, looking to win the whole thing today. Chris Barr set to kick off for Los Angeles. Darren Nelson and Alfred Anderson back deep for Minnesota. Darren Nelson bobbles the ball out of the end zone. So Minnesota will take over 1st and 10 at their own 20-yard line, but there is a flag on the play.
Steckel saying, take it back. We want another shot at it. Yes, he's calling it.
You know, one of the things I think that Steckel has to be concerned about right now, he knows the reputation of the Raiders. He knows that they come from behind.
Offside, number 29, kicking team.
And that they like to come from behind. They don't like to come from behind. The penalty was called against Jimmy Smith. But they have a reputation of coming from behind. And this is where the Raiders really start to wear down their opposition. Maybe that grueling, militaristic training camp that he put them through will help them to overcome getting so fatigued that the Raiders can come back and overwhelm them.
I think Les Steckel is exactly right, Jim. Is working on them both physically and emotionally and mentally. He says, yes, I am a DI, but really DI stands for discipline and integrity. Self-discipline, self-integrity, believing in yourself, so when a tough situation comes up, as this one is, when you're tied 20-all in the 4th quarter against the world champions, you'll be able to find something, some self-belief, and be able to compete.
You know, and he'll really be able to sell his program over to these young men if they're able to do something in a very positive way this afternoon. If all that physical conditioning that we've heard so much about pays off for them.
He said nobody, Jim, nobody is better conditioned than us, and we do not wilt in the 4th quarter. We're going to find out.
That's Darren Nelson. Chris Barr kicking off for the Raiders. Nelson at about the 3. Darren Nelson gets over the 25 up to about the 28-yard line, and that's where the Vikings will take over 1st and 10. Tackle there made by Tony Caldwell. 12 minutes, 37 seconds left to go in the final period.
And now we're going to find out about if I have a quarterback who I am asking to take my team in a very tough situation, I want a guy like Tommy Kramer. I mean, the players, Matt Blair will tell you that Kramer is a guy that's one of the boys. Tough, hard-nosed, feisty, fiery, and when it's on the line, Kramer can do it.
He's going against an opposition that has those same adjectives.
Oh, no doubt about it. Look at those cornerbacks, that defensive unit. for the Raiders.
Kramer back to pass. Throws across the middle, and it is complete to Mike Jones. So Mike Jones, who is going in motion and finding holes in the Raiders secondary, goes in motion, and Kramer's able to find it.
Motion causes problems when you're trying to play man-to-man. He's in motion. Defensive back's not sure whether 22 Mike Haynes, whether he's going to come all the way across the field or duck between the line the way he does there. He just finds the opening and gets very close to the first down.
Pick up of about 9 yards to be exact. 2nd and 1. Ball at the 39-yard line. Penalty flags go down before Ted Brown can make his get the ball and run. And Brown's a little upset because I think that he felt that he was going to have an opportunity to at least pick up the first down.
68 offense.
Curtis Rouse is who the penalty was called on.
As in House. Minnesota now penalties 10 times for 96 yards. LA 15 penalties, 130 yards. So this has not exactly been a penalty-free afternoon for either team.
Talked about the conditioning, the preseason conditioning of Les Stickle for his Vikings. Maybe it's paid off so far. We'll see. Draw play. It's Ted Brown coming to the outside. Bobbles the ball and kicks it. I don't believe it.
I don't either. It looked like a pinball machine, the ball going everywhere. Look at them clapping. Oh, the Vikings. They dodged the bullet. Ted Brown, you know, as you do, you're running with the ball. You have it in your inside arm. You want to switch it so that arm is free to use on a straight arm to ward off tacklers. But as he's switching it, he bobbles it, kicks it. Take a look at it right here. It's a little draw. It shows good speed getting outside. I'm surprised all the Raiders get caught inside. But here he goes to switch it. Oh, wait, where is it? Give me the handle. Kicks it a few times. Watch this. Raiders go to recover. It goes up in the air. There, it's punched up again. Looks like a volleyball game. Finally, the Vikings somehow come up with the recovery.
Mike Haynes had a shot at it.
Everybody.
Howie Long had a shot at it.
Leo Lewis
finally comes up with it. 1st and 10. Kramer back to pass. After they dodge the bullet. Tosses out to Alfred Anderson. Anderson tackled by Jack Squire. Bill Pickell also in on the tackle.
I want to see another look at that fumble. I mean, it was everywhere. No one could find it. Everybody had a shot at it. Here. Watch, see the ball in his inside hand. Now he's going to switch. Yeah, I'll switch, but wait a minute. I'll kick it a few times. Why can't I grab it? I'll play soccer with it. Then Raiders. Here, it's up in the air. No one knows where it is. There's a lot of jockeying going on. Finally, Leo Lewis, right place at the right time for the Vikings.
Isn't that amazing? The smallest man on the field comes up with a fumble recovery. 2nd and 10. All at the 49-yard line of Minnesota. Inside handoff to Ted Brown. Rod Martin. Sean Jones. Bob Nelson in on the tackle for Los Angeles.
The Vikings, to their credit, staying with their game plan. They said to us, we believe we can run the ball on the Raiders. We believe we also can throw it, but I believe we have to run the ball as you look at some scores. Buffalo leading Seattle, a little bit of a surprise, 28-24 fourth quarter. That one, 17-17, as San Francisco comes back in the fourth quarter to tie Pittsburgh.
Look at this, 34-14. Washington over Dallas, and Danny White has replaced Gary Fogelman as quarterback of the Cowboys. But here, Tommy Kramer is the quarterback of the Vikings, and he calls timeout.
You'd really like to save your timeouts because they may come back to haunt you later on, but Kramer didn't like what he saw. It's a key third down situation. The score is tied. We'll be back, folks.
Pruitt, I want Schmitzen at that meeting. Snow or no snow?
Noonan, I want Schmitzen at that meeting. Snow or no snow?
Boulder, I want Schmitzen at that meeting. Snow or no snow?
Edelmeyer.
You know who to call when you have to get a package there. But what do you do when you have...
Along with John Dockery, I'm Jim Hill. A bit of a surprise here with a little over 9 minutes, just under 10 minutes left to go in the ball game. The Vikings, Los Angeles Raiders tied at 20. The Raiders have 3 timeouts left, Minnesota 2. Tommy Kramer has just called one. 3rd and 7. Ball at the 48-yard line of Los Angeles. Raiders are really getting fired up. Howie Long, Rod Martin, Lyle Alzado all getting in, making the sack on Kramer.
Sean Jones throwing blows with Curtis Rouse. Howie is either the fastest, the quickest defensive lineman I've ever seen, or he's offsides. Take a look at him right here. Ball isn't snapped. Great anticipation. He gets off the ball in a hurry. He's in before Kramer can even set up. So is everybody else.
I think the key word there was anticipation.
Yes, it was very close.
Fourth down now. Greg Coleman set the punt. Greg Pruitt sets the receive. Coleman angling away from Pruitt. Ball goes out of bounds, and it will be marked at the 17-yard line, and that's where the Raiders will take over 1st and 10. This telecast is presented by the authority of the National Football League, and it is intended for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or other use of this telecast without the express written consent of the Los Angeles Raiders and the National Football League is prohibited. The Vikings have really surprised a lot of people, and in a way, you think maybe they've surprised themselves, John?
You know, you might be right. I mean, they played reasonably well throughout the year. I mean, they won 2, they lost 2 to begin the year, a tough loss to San Diego, but then they came back and won 2, beating Atlanta, a good football team, and then Detroit, and then they went into a tailspin against Seattle and Tampa Bay.
1st and 10, play action pass by Wilson. Almost intercepted. Dennis Johnson had the ball go into and out of his hands as the intended receiver was Cliff Branch.
It's time for the defense to step up. If the Vikings are going to win this game, the defense has to step up and make some good plays. They have very few interceptions, only 4 coming into this game here. He had a shot at intercepting it, but he just didn't. Dennis Johnson.
Those are the plays that you look back on the next day in the film and said, oh, only if. But he didn't make the play. And the Raiders will have it 2nd and 10 at their own 17-yard line. The Raiders going for their 6th win of the year. The ball had to be respotted. And the Vikings have surprised a lot of people, leading for most of the first half, and now the game is all tied at 20. Here's Wilson back to pass. Complete to Todd Christensen. Christensen hit immediately by John Swain. So Todd Christensen, who had a couple of passes thrown very badly in his direction, comes up with a big reception there.
Wilson and Christensen played together at BYU. Now, people think they have a special relationship. Wilson says, no, I'm a quarterback who looks outside. My receiver's covered. I come back to the middle right now to Todd Christensen because he gets open, and it's the shortest throw for a quarterback.
8:52 left to go in the final period. Todd Christensen in at tight end, but the handoff goes to Kenny King. There's McNeil, Studwell, Dennis Johnson in on the tackle for Minnesota, and there is a flag on the play. The preliminary call, holding against the Raiders.
That's their 16th penalty of the afternoon.
Holding, number 72, offense. Still 1st down.
Penalty called against Don Mosbar. And Tom Flores is one of the coolest characters you'll ever really want to meet. He does not show a great deal of emotion on the field unless it's right at the end of the ball game. But what an excellent job he has done with this Raider ball club. But I'm sure the things that are going through his mind now is, let's get over those silly penalties. 1st and 20, all at the 18-yard line of Los Angeles. Play action pass. Wilson with plenty of time. Intended for and complete to Todd Christensen. Tackle made by Tom Hanna.
Christensen, such a good pass receiver, a big target, gets open last year. All-world tight end. People talk about Kellen Winslow, but this man, certainly in that kind of a class. Here he's rolling out, he's looking, he's got plenty of time, too much time. Finally, he finds Christensen, puts it in there in a hurry. See that strong arm gets in there before the Vikings can react.
And it is enough yardage for the 1st down. Todd Christensen is a man who had bit of a contractual dispute with the Raiders at the beginning of the year. He held out, came in. People still want to know if the Raiders and Christensen have gotten together. Christensen came back and playing a fine game this afternoon. Play action pass again. This time the ball is complete to Malcolm Barnwell. Dennis Johnson in on the tackle for Minnesota. Malcolm Barnwell, who's had a big afternoon making receptions himself today.
And the reason Barnwell was able to get open was that number 32 coming out of the backfield, take a look at it. You'll see him coming out of the backfield, runs deep downfield and clears, and he takes the defensive back, Tommy Hannon, with him. Number 45, Barnwell, comes outside, makes the completion in front of number 52, Dennis Johnson.
There's a measurement on the field now. And it is enough yardage for the first down.
The Raiders are, Jim, you said it before, they're a championship team. They know how to win. Mark Wilson, 5th year out of BYU, has been in some big contests. So this isn't exactly a strange situation for him.
Doki Williams replaces Cliff Branch. Barnwell is the other wide receiver. Christensen the tight end. Handoff goes to Frank Hawkins. Frank Hawkins finally tackled by Carl Lee. As the Raider offensive line did an exceptionally good job of coming off the line of scrimmage, blowing off the defensive unit, allowing Hawkins to pick up enough yardage for the first down.
You have to wonder if the defensive line, so many injuries in that defensive line, is wearing down. As the Raiders open a huge hole for Hawkins, of course the Minnesota Viking defense coming in near the bottom in the NFL.
That play good for 17 yards and a first down. Wilson looking for Barnwell, goes back to the other side. Great job of pointing, directing people, but he can't get away from Mark Mullaney. Mark Mullaney, who has done a great job this afternoon. You see that little plastic in front of his face right there? That's because he had that serious eye injury, and it's much like a hockey goaltender's mask.
It's not preventing his vision in getting to the quarterback, even though Wilson had an incredible amount of time, so much so, it was like you're in the schoolyard. Here, directing traffic. You go down 20 yards, cut. No, you're not there. Here, move down again. Oh, okay, I want you to go downtown. But Mullaney makes a good move, grabs his jersey right there. Could have been evaded, but makes the sack.
Right at the secondary of the Vikings with good coverage for an extended period of time. 6 minutes, 30 seconds left to go. Wilson back to pass again. Rolling outside. The ball intended for Malcolm Barnwell. John Swain defending, knocking the ball down.
John Swain is probably the best defensive back the Vikings have. There he made good ball reaction. He's a 4th-year player out of Miami in Florida. Unfortunately, he was out of bounds from the Vikings' point of view. Even the strong arm of Mark Wilson couldn't get this ball in there with very little room on the sideline. See that good extension? Good play by Swain.
It'll be 3rd and 19. Ball on the 44-yard line of Minnesota. Score time. 6:23 left to go. Here's Wilson back to pass. Steps up into the pocket and starts to run. And Mark Wilson goes down inside the 30-yard line, about the 34-yard line. Tackle there made by Doug Martin.
Now, say Florey's heart does a little fluttering as well as Al Davis's when they see Mark Wilson taking off. Of course, Jim Plunkett, injured reserve with a stomach muscle pulling a hip pointer. And if Mark Wilson isn't the man, then they go to Ray Guy, the punter, as the next quarterback who would come in for the Raiders if Wilson were hurt.
That brings up 4th down. The Raiders will punt. Coming up following football, 60 minutes. So Ray Guy, who has one of the strongest legs and has been one of the greatest punters in the National Football League, if he punts the ball, will obviously try to down it inside the 10-yard line, maybe angling for one of the corners.
An incredible stat. He's averaged 43 yards in 11 years. Ray Guy has, as we look at Darren Nelson awaiting the punt.
Here's a timeout on the field.
You know, a situation here, they might take a penalty just because it moves it back 5 yards. Gives
Delay of
Guy...
the game penalty against the offense is declined. Still 4th down.
Interesting that they declined the penalty. The Raiders wanted a little more room for Guy to put it out inside the 10-yard line. Minnesota says, heck no, we're not going to let you do that. We're going to decline the penalty.
So that little chess move by Tom Flores, Les Stickle did not go for it.
Little gamesmanship.
5 minutes, 11 seconds left to go in the ball game. A 20-20 tie. Here's Guy angling for the coffin corner on the near sideline. And the ball will be marked at about the 10-yard line. That's where Minnesota will take over 1st and 10. So Ray Guy did his job then. He didn't want to kick the ball out of the end zone to bring it back to the 20. He kicked it out at the 10-yard line. That's where Minnesota will take over 1st and 10 when we return.
No other heat gun removes paint faster than the Wagner Power Stripper. The Power Stripper is faster on latex, faster on oil. The Power Stripper gives you 2 temperature settings and a range of tips to give you versatility few heat guns can match. The new Wagner Power Stripper. It's the perfect tool for taking paint off from the people who know so much about putting it on. Wagner, the right tool for painting.
Last year, car makers spent a record $1 billion in advertising just to tell you how wonderful their cars are. Fortunately, there's a more objective opinion, car owners. According to a recent survey of all the cars in America, import or domestic, car owners rated Subaru second only to Mercedes in customer satisfaction. And that's the kind of advertising money can't buy. Subaru, inexpensive and built to stay that way.
The Minnesota Vikings find themselves in somewhat of a hole right now as they have the ball 1st and 10 at their own 10-yard line. Score tied at 20. Tommy Kramer handing off to Anderson. Alfred Anderson, met by Bob Nelson. Here's the final. The 49ers have fallen from the ranks of the undefeated, losing to Pittsburgh 20-17. Here's another one. Washington defeating Dallas 34-14. In the 4th quarter, Buffalo over Seattle, or rather Seattle over Buffalo 31-28. Inside handoff to Ted Brown, and it does not work. Bob Nelson.
The Raiders are making a statement, and they're putting a punctuation mark on it. Take a look at the punctuation mark. Nelson meeting Brown. Steps into the play. Raiders are so tough when the game's on the line. They have something to play for. Right there. Big play by Nelson. Tough situation for Tommy Kramer. 3rd and about 9. 4 minutes left. You're tied at 20 all. You don't want to give the ball back on a turnover, but yet you want to get your team moving and try and get a score.
And the Raiders have so many different people that they can use on defense. That's why they're having such success now. There's another reason why. Sean Jones. And the Raiders' top draft choice comes through with flying colors. So now it'll be up to Greg Coleman as frustration sets in.
You know, they're so high on Sean Jones, number 99. He was drafted in the 2nd round this year out of Northeastern, and there he shows why the Raiders are so high on him.
Coleman back to punt for Minnesota. He'll have to watch himself that he doesn't step on the end line. The Vikings are missing him in. Greg Pruitt is at the Viking 45-yard line, so the Raiders hoping to get excellent field position here. There's a timeout on the field as there is some confusion. So the Vikings call timeout. Heck of a way to lose a commercial with the game on the line. 3:25 left to go in the ball game. Minnesota's confused. The score's tied.
Pruitt, I want Schmitzen at that meeting. Snow or no snow?
The son. Maud Adams, the woman who married one but loved the other. Nairobi Affair.
Minnesota finally gets 11 men on the field. What some people might think they wasted a timeout. Leaves their offensive unit only one. Now Greg Coleman has to be careful. Greg Pruitt is on his own 45-yard line. Raiders should get pretty good field position out of this. Pruitt at the 47. Greg Pruitt. As tempers start to flare again. That's Ted Watts, number 20, getting upset. Don Hasselbeck, the former Raider, coming over, and he's trying to do anything he can to help his present team to defeat his former teammates. Now for an NFL update, let's go to Brent Musburger in New York.
Jim, there's only one unbeaten team left in the National Football League. San Francisco's Ray Wershing misses a field goal that would have tied the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lose. Miami stays unbeaten. And the Tigers have just hit a home run off the goose. They're closing in on a world championship. Back to Jim.
All right, Brent, thank you very much for a combination of sports.
Brent knows it all in New York, doesn't he?
Absolutely. 3:15 left to go in the ball game. The Raiders have the ball 1st and 10. Inside handoff. Frank Hawkins. Tackle made by Carl Lee. You know, when you are a championship caliber team and you know that you have the ability to come from behind and win late in the ball game, you have that confidence. You just know, you just feel that you're going to win it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the line of scrimmage, when things have been going wrong for you, sometimes you start to feel the same thing. Oh, here we go again.
That's the mark of a winner.
First and 10. Hawkins again. Randy Holloway in on the tackle for Minnesota. Also Scott Studwell. So Frank Hawkins picking up the tempo from the running back position just a little bit as he picks up about 5 yards, and it'll be 2nd and 5.
And it's interesting that the Raiders look to their ground game and the strong, small, fresh back, 5'9", 210. Frank Hawkins, one of the strongest players on the Raider team. As you look at the clock running down to the 2-minute warning.
And the Raider offensive unit obviously will let the clock run down so we can get the 2-minute warning. So with 2 minutes left to go in our ball game, don't you folks go away. It's going to be an exciting finish. The Los Angeles Raiders and the Minnesota Vikings are tied at 20. We'll be back with the exciting final 2 minutes in just a moment.
To thousands of people like Eddie, it's the one thing they thought they would never have, a chance to make it.
We are about to begin the final 2 minutes of play from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. I'm Jim Hill along with John Dockery. The Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Raiders are tied at 20.
One of the problems the Minnesota Vikings have is that they only have one timeout left. They wasted one a couple of moments ago without 10 players on the field, without 11 on the field.
2nd and 5. Toss back to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen gets down to about the 15, just inside to about the 14.5-yard line before he's tackled by Neil Elshai.
Now, obviously, the Raiders are in field goal range for Chris Barr already. But obviously, a touchdown is a lot surer for the victory. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to just run safe, high-percentage plays, hope to not create a turnover, an interception, a fumble, and take their shot at winning with a field goal.
Greg Pruitt checks in for Marcus Allen. 3rd and short. 1:24 left to go in the ball game. Pruitt and Frank Hawkins in the backfield. Goes to Frank Hawkins. Going behind Don Mosbar. Hawkins picks up enough yardage for the 1st down.
Hawkins has had a great afternoon. He has now carried the ball 9 times for 55 yards and really has picked up the slack here in the 4th quarter as the Raiders just position that ball right in front of the goal post. 1st down, 56 seconds left.
And Marcus Allen checks back into the ball game, replacing Greg Pruitt. So Frank Hawkins may be short in stature. He's a tremendous ball player. And off goes to Hawkins again. Frank Hawkins down to about the 5.5-yard line before he's tackled by Carl Lee. 34 seconds left to go in the ball game. The Raiders running the clock down, trying to make sure they get it down to the final few seconds so that when the clock runs out, it'll be Chris Barr attempting the winning field goal. 20 seconds left to go in the ball game. Les Stickle, knowing there's absolutely nothing he can do. He has one timeout left. 14 seconds left to go. Stickle seeing the victory slip away from him. Now the Raiders call timeout with 13 seconds left to go. Stickle knowing that the Raiders are going to call timeout, thinking that, well, maybe he'll save his final timeout.
You know, Chris Barr coming into this game was 8 of 10 on field goals. He's made 2 today, but he missed 1. Remember earlier, number 76, Tim Irwin, blocking a field goal of Chris Barr's? So a field goal is not a sure thing. A touchdown is. Obviously, they're setting up for the field goal now and taking their own destiny in their own hands and putting it right in this man's foot. If he kicks it, they get a win. If he misses it, okay, they go into overtime. Still a chance for victory.
Well, you know, you put pressure on people, or you put people in different situations because that's what they're paid to do. And Barr is paid to come through in pressure-type situations.
And he had. I mean, last year he had that great career high, 114 points. He was simply spectacular. He's a pressure kicker.
And from this distance, Barr has not missed so far this year. He's a perfect 5 for 5 on field goal attempts from 20 to 29 yards. But the Vikings, remember in years past, I remember when I was in Green Bay playing against them, one of the great things that they did was block extra points and field goals. They won many, many ball games from their special teams unit.
What they can't forget about here is think so much field goal that they let the Raiders get into the end zone for the touchdown.
That's right. They're trying to set it up, and here the Raiders are going to run again. Play goes to Hawkins. Frank Hawkins. 6 seconds, 5 left, 4, 3, 2.
Oh, did Mark Wilson wait a long time to call that timeout? It was close.
So what the Raiders did, Barr had started to come out on the field. They brought him back off, decided to run one play because Tom Flores, looking up, seeing that Minnesota had 1 timeout left, he said, okay, and the chess game continues to move right along.
But you mentioned it. If there's a team in the NFL who can block a field goal, it's the Minnesota Vikings. They have the knack. Tim Irwin, number 76, did it earlier in this contest. Let's see if he can do it again and give the Vikings a shot to come back and win this game in overtime.
2 seconds left to go in the ball game. The score is tied at 20. You see Les Stickle signaling to his defensive unit. This will be a 20-yard field goal for the victory. Mark Wilson will hold. Christensen will snap. Chris Barr for the 20-yard winning field goal. It's good. Les Stickle coming over to congratulate Tom Flores.
Not by much, it wasn't good. Wow. It looked like it might have been off to the side, but it did go through, so the Raiders win it.
A valiant effort by the Minnesota Vikings, but on a 20-yard field goal by Chris Barr, the Raiders win 23-20. We'll be right back.
Century, where hardware isn't a sideline.
Here's the winning field goal by Chris Barr. Didn't make it by much.
Jim, not exactly perfection by Chris Barr. Take a look at it here. He hooks it a little bit to the left, and it just gets inside the upright. But it's good enough. Take a look at the reaction here. Chris Barr, oh yes, get in, get in, get in. Oh, relief that he didn't miss it.
Just by a little bit. This is Jim Hill for John Dockery saying so long from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, where the final score, Los Angeles 23, Minnesota 20. Be sure to join CBS Sports next Sunday for exciting NFL action, where you'll be seeing the Detroit Lions take on the Minnesota Vikings. It's all starting with the NFL today at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central on CBS. You've been watching CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League.
Fly the friendliest